to do 7-minute opening statements, and I think that's fair. So we'll start off with 7-minute opening statements. I think, Andrew, since you were the initiator, you should do your opening statement first.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure my audio okay now. Guys,
yeah, you're good.
Out in the chat. Well, not to you guys. Hang on, I'm just asking my chat. Yeah, it's all good. Okay. Vaush, I won't take the entire 7 minutes. I'm sure you won't either before we get into the back and forth. But first, I appreciate Vaush taking the time to have this debate with me, the audience of both Alex PWF and the audience of The Crucible for coming out tonight as we have this debate. The topic tonight is Christian nationalism versus libertarian communism. I understand Vaush likely has many criticisms of Christian nationalism, though I think most of them will be directed at other people's advocation of it rather than my own. To define Christian nationalism simply, it is the operation of a synergy between the church and the state. Such a synergy can be operated either under the confines of the church acting as the state or as the church being a division of it in some way. This could operate as an advisory role, which in many ways it does now anyway, or as a division of the state itself with separate guidelines from that of the secular nation, or it could have similarities to the secular nation. This idea is in no way radical. To this day, there are many nations who operate under these guidelines through religion, though I would argue with the wrong religion. And historically, such Christian nations and empires withstood the test of time, though ultimately buckling. Some of them lasted well over 1,000 years. No current product of any Western nation is going to do that. Remember in the course of this debate that Vaush is at the mercy of the same criticisms he may levy at the idea of Christian nationalism. In many ways, he is more at the mercy of his own criticisms than I am, as the examples of communism we have are less than ideal, and he envisions a radical parting from those systems, yet historically those systems are all we can point to. Under my own system, however, we can point to nations which have prospered, persevered, and ultimately created mostly happy and healthy populations. A return to patriarchy is the order of the day. The way that we would achieve this is the same way the communists and feminists achieved their subversive goal of their attempted annihilation of Christianity, which is still ongoing, and that key is through the demographic shift via birth rates. The religious have a lot of children, and the non-religious don't. The future essentially is ours. My plan for such a system is no different than Vaush's in execution. Over the next 100 years, we Christians establish our values into our children and direct them to begin to take over the institutions. This seems like a laughable proposition, except that's exactly what the Marxists and feminists did. It took them about 150 years or so to accomplish it. We can do exactly the same thing. In fact, we can probably do it in about 100 years. Our job external to that is just to slow the progressive machine down any way we can until age claims its advocates. Obviously, I have a lot more to say on this topic, and as we get into the debate, just remember that theology informs culture, and culture informs politics. And with that, I'll cede the rest of my time over to Vaush, and hopefully we can get into this thing.
Cool. Vaush, you got 7 minutes. You can use as much of that as you want. Have at it, buddy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noted absent of that opening from Andrew was either a description of what the problems are with modern society or how his proposed solutions would fix any of it. The problem that I have is that ultimately it feels like this is always a vibes thing, which is ironically very feminine and not at all a representation of patriarchal logic. The idea that there's something wrong with society and the best way to address it is to return with a V, just gesturing at, well, civilization lasted, ignoring the fact, of course, that Christian civilization and history has been a nonstop shit pit where countries obliterate each other, ethnic and ideological and linguistic and religious divide shifts constantly, just nonstop war. I mean, if you want to point towards longevity of civilization, I mean, go look at China. You know, that's probably the best example we have of real longevity. Christianity, of course, not being a primary force in its stability, except for the extent to which it destabilized it in the 1800s. In truth, what makes a nation last or does not is A, complicated, and B, not of interest to Andrew. His interest in these subjects, patriarchy, blah, blah, fight progressivism, is for entirely separate reasons. In reality, the idea of preserving civilization is altogether kind of a psyop. It's not a real thing. Everything changes. No civilization is as it was 50 or 100 years ago. You can preserve names, I guess you can point towards official longevity, but none of this really means anything. What matters is, how do we build the best life possible for the greatest number of people? And I think, of course, the libertarian socialism proposes many excellent solutions when it comes to the problems we have with modern life. Religion does not. Religion does not improve anything. It does not fix our problems. It does not make our cities more walkable. It does not address income inequality. It doesn't do anything except give people a feeling that there is meaning where there is none. I think we should construct our own meaning in a willful manner rather than ceding it entirely to imagined higher forces.
All right. This is the open segment part, so you guys have at it.
Yeah, so Vaush, let's start with your religion doesn't improve anything. And yet, as we look at the happiness indexes of the people who are the most religious, they seem to be the most happy. They're also having the most children. They're also divorcing the least. They seem to, out of all the metrics, have the least amount of mental illness. How could you possibly, with a straight face, make the claim that religion doesn't improve anything? All of your positions are material in nature, and they don't seem to work that well. They don't seem to answer your greater questions.
Right off the bat, we see the analytical issues. First of all, tracking this onto the number of babies had. Historically, the most babies humans have been during pre-modern medieval periods where women were pumping out 11 kids, half them would die in the fields. The number of children you have has nothing to do with how happy you are. Likewise with divorces and marriages. Again, we would have to argue then that the happiest marriages must have necessarily been in the ones in, I don't know, England prior to Henry VIII. You would point back to some time where it was illegal to divorce. These aren't real metrics of happiness. People in general are getting less happy. That is absolutely the case.
Why but the religious seem to be less so via self-reporting, and the religious are having the most amount of children. And I have the stats here. If you'd like to review them, I can show this to you and demonstrate it to you. Pew Research has been following this very closely for a number of years, and their indexes seem to be quite good. And yet your materialist outlook seems to claim that libertarian socialism, materialism will save you. And yet we're closer to that worldview than ever. And yet mental illness and all of these factors which lead to unhappiness is higher than ever.
We've only
least of all with the religious.
Tracking. So first of all, as I established, birth rates are irrelevant to this discussion if we're talking about happiness. Second of all, mental illness as well. We've only started tracking mental illness in a meaningful way in the past couple of decades. So this is another factor which you can't reasonably tie to a lack of religiosity. In fact, if you go to our insane asylums and people with severe mental illness issues, you'll find plenty of people there who are deeply religious. The idea that mental illness tracks perfectly onto, or even remotely, onto a lack of religiosity is just absolutely not the case.
Well, how can you make that claim? That actually makes no sense. You say birth rates can't be tied to happiness, and yet if you have children, you are happier. Could you possibly say that birth rates wouldn't track onto that? Of course they would.
Do you think people were like at their happiest in India in like 1880 when the average number of children had by every mother was like 8 or 9 at a time during desperate poverty? I'm asking.
Yeah, this is a red herring. It has nothing to do with
wait, answer the question. If you think
I have no idea. I don't think it's relevant. I have no idea.
I think that birth rates do not track perfectly onto happiness. In fact, I don't think there's any relation.
Yeah, but that wasn't my claim
at all.
Bro. That
you
really
made
was not my claim.
Higher birth rates are indicative of greater happiness.
No. My claim, just so that you don't straw man it, is that women who have children seem to be happier than women who do not have children. When you look at the birth rate, of course, that's going to map onto that, as women are the ones who have the children. So obviously, if they're happier, they're going to have more children, and as mothers, they're going to have more children. At least this is what the Pew research shows.
Do you think there might be a confounding variable there? Like maybe the economic stability, which allows people to have children, might make people, happier?
Then why are the poorest people having the most of them?
Because poorer people sometimes are happier, and sometimes they have more children. Or maybe, as per my argument, maybe there isn't a strong relationship between how many children you're having and how happy you are.
So what would make poorer people happier than people with all of this materialism? That's really weird, Vaush.
I didn't say that. I was indicating that I think this is an argument in favor of my point. I just don't think these two statistics track onto each other very well. And I don't think you do either, frankly. I think that the reality that when we talk about like what makes people unhappy or what problems we can solve socially, the actual like fabric of a person's mental wellness is so complicated and so multivariate that I would immediately distrust anyone who tried to reduce it to a single variable. I'm more interested in.
Hang on. We're not reducing anything to a single variable. That's one. Okay. Nobody said the issue is not multifaceted. However, for you to make kind of this bold claim and gloss it over when you're pinned down on the fact that the people who are the poorest, they seem to be the the happiest. At least that's what your claim just was a second ago.
No,
so if that's true, then obviously it must be something other than materialism, which is causing them to be happier. What would you say that is, Vaush?
I didn't make that claim. I said that there are plenty of... No, I said maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this, as ways of indicating that I don't feel there's a strong track between birth rates and happiness. Birth rates are higher in many parts of the world that are a lot poorer and less happy than the United States. In the United States, it is absolutely the case that poor people tend to have more children. There's also a racial or ethnic element to that as well, but this isn't a perfect one-to-one track. For instance, rural areas where the cities are drying up and dying, there are people who have lots of kids, sure, but they're not happy. I mean, we make I guess sort of reductive comments about white trash families, and I don't think that's fair, but it is certainly the case that, there are plenty of households out there where you have both many children and not a lot of happiness.
Well, then this is another problem with the materialist worldview, Vaush. When you make this kind of bold claim, don't you think that economics really has a lot to do with whether or not people are having children? And then you cite that the poorest people are having the most amount of children. Right? This is a very strange argument from you. So I'm hoping that you can qualify this and make this make sense to me.
I don't think anything that I said there doesn't make sense. The characteristics that might lead a person to have a lot of children are incredibly complicated. I mean, if you want a full rundown, it correlates more often to people who are poorer, I imagine, because people who are poorer often have a harder time with regards to family planning and management. They also have less strict life plans when it comes to their own career.
They're also more religious.
Sometimes, but
most of the time.
But they're not the happiest. In fact, there's a very large degree of opioid addiction and unhappiness in highly religious rural communities with lots of children. So it's almost like your attempt to reduce these variables to some kind of simple correlative line doesn't actually work when you look at the material reality.
Okay, well, first of all, backing up, you and I have both agreed already that it's multifaceted. Right? I'll agree that that's true, but that doesn't mean that some variables aren't far more important than others, which is why you cited an economic variable to begin with. Moving into this, when you're talking about this portion of the topic, which is birth rates, which have become absolutely disastrous everywhere, not just in the West, but globally, this was all due to anti-natalist campaigning from leftists.
What's disastrous about our birth rates?
They're in free fall collapse, Vaush.
They've lowered, as they have in every industrialized country. Sure.
No, in all countries. Almost all countries everywhere, with the exception of a few African nations and Middle Eastern nations, and those are dropping off quickly too.
Yes, industrialized countries produce fewer children because you no longer need 8 little tykes to run the farm, of course.
Well, no, that's not the only reason that we have a collapse in birth rate. It's because women are getting married older instead of younger. Now, you could make the argument...
education.
You could make the argument that this is due to... better family planning or something like this, I suppose. But still, ultimately, if you want to keep your population high, thus keeping your economy good in all nations on planet Earth, you can't just shift around people who don't exist because the birth rate's lower everywhere.
Our populations are still growing.
No, they're actually plateauing quickly. And the last UN report showed that, but the most modern UN report on population demographics, which I have in front of me, show that it's much more catastrophic than the UN previously predicted, citing that China, and this came in from a study from, sorry, it's on Forbes. I can link
China's
it over
situation is specific to the one-child policy. I think that was very dumb of the CCP. Yeah. I'm talking about here in the West.
They're talking about a 500 million reduction in the Chinese population, potentially by 2050, 2060. That's right around the corner. Okay. That's a massive population reduction. Japan, within 200 years, is actually slated to not exist. It's slated to not exist due to the population.
So is the world population growing or decreasing right now?
Right now, it's plateauing.
the world population, as I understand it, is still growing at a decent clip. I mean,
it's
it went
going
from 6
but it's
billion to 8
plateauing.
billion just in
Yes.
sure, that's fine. We have a finite
and then
amount
it
of
free
space.
falls. And then it's projected to free fall by every UN analyst and by every scientific metric that you can possibly look at who has looked at this. It's expected to free fall and possibly stabilize at 6 billion in the next 150 years to 200 years. But the estimates...
What UN analyst? Yeah, I'd like to see that. Also, assuming that's the case, okay. I mean, it can't grow forever. Like, let's presume that information is accurate. If that seems fine. I mean, what should we have? 10, 12, 15?
Well, so here's why this is problematic, Vaush, because the Population Bomb, which was a book that was dropped all over the African nations and India in order to reduce the populations of those nations significantly. It turns out that was very problematic because, as it turns out, the more people you have, the more work gets done and the more people get fed. Right now, due to the increase in population, there's more global food production, the ability to deliver this food globally to people who need it than there ever has been in human history. That's what happens with pro-natalist policies versus anti-natalist policies.
Okay, wait, you just answer what population do you think it should stop at? So, okay, it might stop at 6 billion. What meaningfully is the difference?
I think that the Earth can easily, according to analysis, have up to 25, 30 billion people with pretty, it's pretty regular ease.
Is that
within that confines of those numbers?
Ideal? How is that better than what we have?
Because more people equals more work, less starvation. Less starvation for populations, more work for infrastructure building, more work for, I mean, even look at the U.S. labor force now. One of the biggest problems.
People to cater to. This is very, very silly. The idea that everything gets better the more people are on Earth, it's just not the case. First of all, like the number of humans that are going to end up on the planet and like sort of plateau out at, that's not the same as our maximum carrying capacity. You don't want to hit the maximum carrying capacity for the same reason.
We're nowhere near it.
Yeah, I'm saying you don't want to. And the reason for that is the same reason you don't want to hit the maximum carrying capacity of an elevator or a restaurant.
But we don't even know what the maximum carrying capacity is, but we do know we're nowhere near it. And we're also declining.
Don't understand what the issue is with these broader trends.
Well, I just explained it to you. You don't want populations in free fall collapse. You don't even have enough hands to do the work. What do you mean? You don't have that now in the United States.
The amount of work, first of all, we get plenty of work done in this country. And second of all, the idea that sure, you have less people doing work, but you also have less people for whom to do the work. Like the idea that you would be doing the same amount of labor if there were 30 billion people on Earth as you have to now with 8 billion people on Earth.
No, man. No. Labor is scalable. You need to understand labor is scalable.
So I don't.
So like when you combine two people together to do a job, it doesn't get done twice as fast. It gets done 4 or 5 times as fast.
That's highly reductive and not the case for all things. There are plenty of things like regional economic limits or non-scalability or lacking in land area or climate change changing the available land.
Give me a type of job or occupation where that's true of.
There's not any. I don't have to provide any argument here because the premise I'm arguing against is nonsensical. Let me construct an ideology. You have to provide an idea first.
I did.
And the idea you're providing is, what if we had an ideology that made everyone have as much babies as possible? But you need to sell me on this being a good idea because I don't care. Like, I'm not sold on this. I want people who are alive to be happy. I want the human species to do well. I think that the human species did pretty well at 6 billion. I'm sure it would do pretty well at 8 or 10 or whatever. But the idea of orienting all of my political beliefs around hitting some kind of maximum.
So I'll try a different angle for you then, if that's your approach. You do agree that you do want some people on planet Earth, right? At least some number of them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I want human civilization.
What number would that be from your perspective?
I don't care. That's the thing. Then
what's the argument here?
We
both want people. We both want people, and if the birth rate reduces, so a population collapses and there's no people, that's bad.
You have to explain to me how shifting our entire political mindset to accommodate some arbitrary goal that you've just made up in front of me is necessary at all. I think that if we build,
it can't be arbitrary if you agree we need humanity.
The gap really quick. So
really quickly, I just want to ask, I just want to put forward the point here, really quickly. Okay, I think that we should build good political systems that make people happy and encourage growth and economic stability and all those wonderful things. I do not think we need to orient everything about some kind of psychotic pronatalist perspective where we try to keep women out of colleges and in the home so every single one of them has like 7 children. I don't think that's
okay, first of all, all you're doing there is framing. I never made the argument that women must do anything. What I told you is that we have a birth rate that's in free fall. You agree that we need to at least have some humanity, which means you have to at least replace the people who are in existence. So you and I can at least agree that every human being should probably have at least one other human being to replace them, right? Or if not, there needs to be some number of humans on planet Earth. So if that's true, and you and I agree that that's true, then having a declining birth rate, that would be catastrophic for both of our worldviews.
If it leveled out at 6 billion.
Stop. I'm going to step in for 1 second and just kind of bridge the gap a little bit. So you guys both agree that there needs to be humans on Earth. But the difference is that Vaush is saying, hey, I don't understand why it's important for us to increase the amount of people that we have on the planet now. Andrew's saying, hey, I think that would actually be better. So that's what Vaush is asking.
The problem that's actually incorrect. So what I'm saying to you is that the amount of people who are on planet Earth right now are slated to significantly decrease down to maybe half or below
I've not seen any numbers.
What the current status is right now. Okay, well, I've just linked the article over to China's population right here.
What about world population?
This is the projection. Now, the world population, the UN projection was at 6 billion. However, the trend is very, very quickly going the other direction. I can send you an article on this as well.
Telling as the world.
So they're saying that it could be reduced to as little as 3.5 billion to 4 billion. They don't know. So
these are speculative numbers that don't actually tie in with like the broader consensus.
Look, well, what's not speculative though is the number of or what the birth rate is at for the percentage of the population.
Invariably, no matter what point you hit, you will hit periods of general like population decline because it's not possible to perpetually maintain growth or stagnation. There will be waves up and down. This is inevitable. I think that what's the problem here is that this is all fake policy. There is no such thing as like global pronatalism or antinatalism. You said earlier the left does antinatalism. This is nonsense.
Let me give you an example.
People have children and are able to have children in line with the material circumstances they live in. Are they educated? Do they have the money? Do they have the space in their household? Are there cultural values that incline them towards having more children or not? These are the things that we can do and control. Now, if we're to have a discussion on what we should promote, here's something I think we could do. Okay,
no. Let me respond to these 2 points because both are inaccurate. The first one is the 2 points that you smuggled in. The first point that you smuggled in was that people can only have children based on material conditions. Not true. They have children outside of the scope of their material conditions all the time. And that's why you see some of the poorest nations in the world breeding more than any other nation. So this is first of all, this is patently false. Hang on, let me finish. I just let you give your argument. Let me give mine back.
You just described those are the material conditions. Material conditions doesn't mean if you're rich enough. It means that the circumstances that surround you give you the ability and inclination to do something. Poverty inclines people towards having lots of children. That is a material condition.
Oh, man, okay, fine. Even if I grant this, okay, this kind of second thing which you smuggled in is that the left has no anti-natalist policy, but they do. They're the by far the largest advocates of abortion everywhere on planet Earth. That's a left-wing socialist policy for sure. Even back to its roots, it was a socialist policy. There's no doubt that that's true. They're the ones who dropped the population bomb all over planet Earth via helicopter in order to get people to stop breeding. They have had significant anti-natalist policies. It's absurd to say otherwise.
So you're saying that giving people the choice as to whether or not they want to have children, it leads to a decrease in how many children people have?
Well, again, this is a smuggled in premise. You're not giving them the choice. You're saying you can't kill your offspring. There's a distinction to be made.
The legality of abortion is giving people the choice to have or to not have children. It leaves out the possibility of accidentally having children.
No, this is your bad world.
No.
Please, you're making the assumption it's not murder.
Stop complaining that literally anything that doesn't immediately like pre-pack your framing into it is some kind of biased question, okay?
Well, then don't complain immediately that I accept your framing as being true.
My framing is that if people have the option to abort a fetus, that they will have less children. I think that people should want to have the children they have. So I want to build a society in which maybe people have more children, but they're amped about it. And what that means is supporting material policies, like, for example, free childcare or better tax credits or legal mandates for corporations to provide maternity and paternity leave. Those are examples of things that socialists tend to support and would massively increase the viability of having children, even in an industrialized country. That's real
And
politics.
if that's true, then how come in the nations where these things are implemented, you have not seen the birth rate make a recovery, Vaush?
Well, I think that there's more to it than that.
Right. So then why are you giving me policies that don't work? I don't care.
They do
Give me
work.
policies that work.
They do work.
Well, then show me how they work.
Okay.
And where they work.
Wait, do you need me to explain to you how like state subsidized daycare makes it easier for people to have kids?
Why it has not done any reversal to the birth rate in the nations which have implemented it?
Well,
None.
wait. Do you have data that demonstrates it as absolutely
Yes,
no
the
effect,
birth rate.
even though for the
Which
past
nation
century?
would you like to cite? And I'll give you the birth rates and that they're on the decline. Absolutely.
What specific policies? Wait, hold on. They're on the decline. Is it possible they would be more on the decline if it wasn't for those policies?
It's possible.
Then how do you know? Wait, no. That's so you
even
confidently say you have
even
data
if
that
it were,
demonstrates
but even if it
correlation to
were,
positive
they
behavior.
don't. You say that these are the policies which would reverse the trend. They don't reverse the trend.
I can give more. So
then give more.
Sure. A lot of it also has to do with work culture. Even in a society in which people are given the opportunity to have children with state mandates and subsidies and what have you, there's a huge issue of like people lose out economically on a lot by having children. A lot of this also has to do with like keeping dads in the home, right? Like if a dad takes 6 months off work, even if it's part of paternity leave, that is a rough sell economically, and it can disincentivize their future promotions. I think that we should have a culture that is much more permissive towards people not being nonstop 24/7 workaholics, because that shit kills families. Not only does it prevent people from having kids, it also fucks up the kids if they are born.
This is a restatement of the same exact claim. You're giving a material position to this, and yet in the places where you have these material positions, like France, for instance, where you have a reduction in the work week and you do have these types of childcare programs, you still see the collapse in free fall of their birth rates. This is not reversing these trends.
Wait, hold
whatsoever.
on. One second. France birth rate over time. You use very scary words like collapse and free fall, and I just want to make sure that it looks
Look it up
like
yourself.
It looks like hold on one second. It looks like it's been holding roughly steady for decades.
Send it in the private chat. Let's take a look.
Yeah, wait, I have it shown here. So it looks like in percentage increase and decrease, there's been like a 2% aggregate decrease since. Wait, hold on. So it's in the year of our Lord. What year is this? Wait, hold on. Sorry.
2020.
2000. Right. No, 2000. 12.7. And then right here you had down to 1. So I guess
as of 2020, France was at 1.83 births per woman. That's not even replacement rate, Vaush. You have nothing here.
Okay, but what's the rate over the past few decades?
You need to have at least 2.2. But even if that were true and the rate were still decreasing past your policy implementation, it hasn't reversed it. It hasn't done what you want it to do, man.
So wait, again, you don't seem to understand how this data works. The whole point of like inferring causality and why it's bad is that you don't know whether or not these would have been worse otherwise. So I'm looking at macrotrends.net on the France fertility rate, where it seems like back in 1978, they had 1.86 births per woman, and right now they have 1.86 births per woman. There's been about a bunch of like fluctuation, but over the past 45 years, the French birth rate has stayed basically the same. So I don't like
You're talking about a negligible difference right now
over 40 years stability. 40 years
in the year 2020. The United States at 1.64 birth rates, and France is only negligibly at 1.8. This is a negligible distinction, utilizing the same policies that you advocate for.
We were talking about France, and I just don't like you using terms like collapse and free fall when what we actually see is total stability over the past 40 years. I mean, that's not
we don't. In fact, I'm pulling it. Their birth rate looks exactly like. Bro, their birth rate looks exactly like ours. It has been collapsing since World War II. There's no doubt that I'm looking at the data.
Okay, wait, I'm going to link you this really quickly so you can see what I'm seeing, because I feel like we're talking past each other a little bit.
If you want to share the screen, just add it and I can share the screen. That's
here. Well, I've just linked it.
Just put it in the private chat and I'll get a look at it here.
It's in there.
I've linked it. I've linked it right there. And as you can see, the French birth rate has remained stable for nearly 45 years now, which is pretty significant, I feel. Unless I'm misreading this data, but it was at 1.86 per woman back in 1978. and it's the same today. So again, like free fall and stability are
1.5. So, okay, so we see a historical collapse. We see in the UN projections and yet another collapse. So no, listen. This is still a collapse.
Wait, what collapse? I'm looking at a horizontal line. What is your definition of collapse? Where's the collapse?
Yeah, so I'm going to send you over the counter data because this is not correct.
In the data, okay, so you're contesting the data, but in the data that I'm looking at that I just sent you, the macro trends link, you would agree that this is not a collapse. This is stability, right?
According to this particular projection, what I see is a massive free fall, which happened. You would agree that that's a free fall, right?
Well, it decreased. Free fall implies like a lack of stability when in fact our countries are the
most stable. So it goes down. So it starts at 2.8 and it goes all the way down to 1.8. That's a significant
free fall is like panic language. It's like woman stuff, you know.
And then it goes down to 1. Okay, fine, whatever. The language, you don't like the language.
It's important. It's like saying like the number of horses used in public travel free fell after 1920, and it's like, okay, it didn't really free fall. It decreased, but I don't like, because free fall implies some kind of like catastrophic event, you know.
And do you see on your line graph that you gave me where it says the word current? If you hover your mouse over there, do you see in the 2023 boxed into the red, what does that say?
Minus 0.05%. Yeah.
Right. So it's still on a slight negative trend down, even according to your data. However, I'll give you data from the UN, which still predicts this free fall.
At that rate, in 100 years, it would not have even reduced by 0.1 births per woman.
Yeah, so this is France's birth rate fell by 7%, 7%, and continues to decline according to the French National Institute for Statistics and Economic Studies. 24,000 fewer. Yeah, I'll send it over to you via the private chat. Yes. So this, I would have to dig into your fertility rates to understand if maybe there was an offshoot there.
I just Googled it. I know that there was a significant decrease in the Western world's birth rates as we moved into modernity, post World War II, such and such, for sure. But since then, I feel like the numbers have been more or less stable, though there is some variety.
They're not stable.
Wait, hold on. Okay, so the problem here is that this is a panic article. Why on earth would you ever try to assess a nation's average birth rate, but with a single year of data?
Dispute the numbers.
So, okay. So the way numbers work is if you want to analyze trends of stuff like birth rates in a nation that go out forward and backward decades, you try to use like larger aggregate data rather than
like global data.
Sure, like over decades and decades.
So let me give you the global data.
The global data shows the population is increasing. But again,
what does the global data show about birth rates though, Vaush?
The birth rates are decreasing. The population is increasing.
So can you perpetually have a birth rate which decreases and a population which increases, Vaush?
No, but I don't want a population to increase.
No, you can't.
Oh, what happened?
I don't know.
I guess his internet crapped out. Let's give him a minute. I wrote down a few things I want to bring up after you guys are done, but I'll let you guys. Okay, there he is.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. I thought I was closing a link, but it turns out I was closing another link. Hi, sorry. Okay, yes. I heard you. You said we were talking about the birth rate falling even if the population increases. Sorry, that was my debate.
Yeah, the birth rate is still falling even if the population is slated for an increase temporarily.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
But we don't actually know that the population is slated for the kind of increase.
Were we talking about France?
I'm going to show this. I'm going to show this to you so that you understand the reason. Well, France was actually a sideline to this. However, you asked me for an argument for why it is that Christians are pro-natalist, essentially, and why we see that as a massive problem. You can see this competes, and there is data linked within that link, which is competitive to the UN models, which shows that the UN models could be vastly incorrect with their projections.
I can't really engage with a random 4 citation article that says, hey, maybe the UN and all that data is wrong, and there are millions of calculations and predictions.
Okay, would you like it from Forbes instead?
You are not going to convince me that the population is about to engage in erratic free fall. I think we should just talk about what policies we want to put forward. Well, it's not. It's objectively not happening.
It is objectively happening globally, yes.
Birth rates decreasing and population decreasing are different things. You can't have a non-stop birth rate of 6 children per woman. That's not a sustainable birth rate.
First of all, why isn't that a sustainable birth rate?
You know how? Okay, are you familiar with the concept of thermodynamics? If you have 6 children per woman, assuming a modern day survivability rate into childhood, you would eventually, over the course of like a century, multiply the human species into unsustainable populations.
Hey, Vaush, do me a favor and close your eyes for a second, just a second, and tell me what the first law of thermodynamics is.
What does that have to do with the master?
You don't even know. Why would you ask me if I'm familiar with
I don't remember which ones are which.
Anything about
I don't remember which ones are which. It's the equal and opposite reaction. And so wait, what does that have to do with like the what does that have to do with like, so you don't understand how an exponential growth in the human
population. You can't tell me I don't understand something, cite thermodynamics, and then prove that you have no understanding of thermodynamics.
You can't smoke a cigarette and like sip whiskey out of a skull glass and then like pretend that we haven't arisen like a problem here. You need to explain to me how you don't think it's an issue to exponentially increase the human population.
No, my ask of you was, you made the claim that this would be a problem if every woman on planet Earth had 6 children. I asked you why that would be a problem, because that's your claim.
And I said, and you might recall this, I said, because we have a finite amount of space, and if we do that, we would bring the human population beyond a sustainable level.
Okay, so I could agree with you in theory.
This is such a silly conversation.
So hang on. So I can agree with you. I can agree with you in theory that would be true if it was perpetual, with like, this was for every single woman forever.
Andrew,
that would likely happen. But
we can't have a 6 children per woman birth rate forever. And you asked why not. Now, don't pretend you didn't say that.
Yeah, but do you know why I did that? I asked you this because I wanted you to land on the number which is sustainable.
Which is?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
What
you say X is not sustainable. I can agree to that, but what number is sustainable?
So your argument then is that we should magically make women produce a exponentially larger number of children until we just eventually happen to hit the maximum possible amount of children or like people we can have on the planet, and then we have a bunch of like war and resource conflicts. We're running out of drinkable water as it is in many.
I haven't even put forward a policy. Why are you arguing?
I know, because you have nothing.
You're arguing against straw men.
No.
Ask me for a policy instead, and I'll ask you for one.
I've asked you for policies multiple times.
Okay, so if you want a specific pro-natalist policy, which I have, would be eliminating abortion. That's a pro-natalist policy.
Phenomenal. I don't care. I think that if people are going...
Well, you don't care, but I haven't given you any policies.
No. It's been like 40 minutes, and it's all been vibes from you. It's all been like, well, I think it should be like this. Tell me why an infinite number of humans wouldn't be a good idea. But you haven't even provided an argument for why we should just catapult the human population to the maximum possible level this planet can hold. Morally.
Well, first of all, I didn't tell you to push it to the maximum limit. What I said to you is that what we have seen as a trend, and I would love to see you disagree with this, is that more people equals less starvation, as opposed to when there was less people and more starvation. And every single scientific study I've seen on this proves that this is true.
Is that a causative relationship?
Even the vegans know that this is true.
Is this a causative relationship, or do you think that
yes, it's a causative relationship?
So you're saying that even though we already have enough food to feed all humans on Earth right now, we need more people to make more food to feed more humans, so we have less starvation than the theoretically none we could be having right now?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of loaded presuppositions there. The first loaded presupposition. Don't cut me off when I answer your question.
Well, you're not answering the question.
I'm answering it. So first of all, your loaded presupposition there is nobody said that we even have enough food right now for the entirety of the population. You just smuggled that in.
No, we do.
It's the ginormous cost of human labor, which is what allows that food to go all over the world. The United States, for instance, massive exporter of food. We are an importer of food as well. Other nations are, but it's due to the fact that we can export and import. You can get things like salt and pepper and all of these other different things. So, how do you think salt mines work? How do you think food is gathered?
Hold on. We already have food. You're arguing that we need 30 billion people on Earth in order to get things that
we would at least need to sustain the current population.
We can. We have enough to.
Well, then why is the birth rate going down, genius?
What?
How are you going to sustain it? If your argument is
Andrew,
down,
I sincerely want to know what on God's green earth are you arguing right now? I genuinely have no idea.
You said to me, why is it that we should keep it sustained? So I tell you why we should keep it sustained. You say we have enough workers and food right now. However, if the birth rate's too low and the population goes down, we won't have those workers, right?
The population is currently increasing.
And it's slated to do what soon? Go which way, up or down?
Some people say that it's going to decrease, which would happen if we hit the maximum population as well. You realize that if we had a gigantic... Wait, please. I can't listen to your irrational rambling for that much longer without arriving at something that even...
You mean completely rational arguments you can't refute?
No, not even remotely. Yes. So you realize that even if we had a gigantic population boom and we hit it and we plateaued at what, 35 million, there would still be constant fluctuations in the overall population, which would have their own economic cycles, crises, and rejuvenation.
Stop trying to shift the topic. We were exactly where
wait.
You so asked me about lowering. You said we have enough people now. Here's Vaush's exact words. Here's Vaush's exact words. We can sustain, right? This. Stop cutting me off, Vaush. Let me finish, and then you can talk.
You cut me off. You're saying
okay. You tell me when you give me the signal for when you're done talking, and then I will go ahead and refute what you're saying.
All right. It will be a while. So you're saying all of this needs to be done to avoid the problems associated with population decrease, but that would also happen even if we hit the maximum carrying capacity of the planet, because population fluctuations are an inevitable part of all human civilization, depending on a variety of internal factors. So we would never even be fully rid of the problem of the population occasionally decreasing. That's one. For two, you've made the argument that we need more people to feed more people. This makes absolutely no sense. We have enough resources on the planet as it is, and we're going to run into more resource issues the more people we have. Because in addition to climate change literally eating up millions and millions of square miles of like arable population-filled land, we also have the broader problem that these are not like problems we need to solve right now. We already have the resources necessary to feed as many people as we want within our own population. If you want to increase the population, again, this isn't like a policy first issue. If you want, there are policies that you can promote, and if people are happy and feel like they can, maybe they can have more children. But the idea of like, we need to drop everything right now and change everything. No. Wait, I said I'd tell you. The idea that we need to drop all sensible policy making and forget about socioeconomics as a concept just so we can pursue this arbitrary goal of inflating the population, creating, by the way, massive resource conflicts, because quadrupling the human population within a century or two would inevitably lead to massive conflict, because those gains would not be distributed evenly across populations, people with different territories that wouldn't be fully settled. So we're causing all these problems for what? If you want to ban abortion, just say ban abortion. Like, don't, it's like,
already
it's like
have, earlier, but now back to my argument.
No, I didn't say, wait, you said,
are you ever going to give the fucking signal?
Discipline. Well, I told you, well, discipline is being a man making promises and filling to those promises. Okay. So you have to wait a bit longer. Earlier on in your opening statement, you whined about the left and feminism.
Just a gish gallop, Vaush. Let me respond to your point. Well, so listen, this is ridiculous. Your initial argument was such.
Conservatism.
Hang on. Your initial argument was such. What you said was this. You said we already have enough people to sustain. You just made the argument again, by the way. We already have enough people to sustain this, and we can deliver global food because there's plenty of food right now with the current population we have. But you also agree that the population is slated to go significantly down by the birth rate. You know this. You've conceded that it's true. These two things cannot make sense together. You can't say, why are you advocating a pro-natalist policy when we already have all the people that are required in order to deliver all this food? Well, because in the future, don't cut me off, didn't cut you off. In the future, we're not going to have this population. We can see it in all the trends, including the UN forecast. That's why we need a pro-natalist policy. And you, the materialist, is still arguing against it, even knowing that that's true.
I don't think you have pro-natalist positions. I think that what you're talking about would actually wreak devastation and mass death on an unprecedented scale.
Which part?
But thankfully, it doesn't matter because what you're saying is gobbledygook. It's nonsense. The idea of like, what's my first policy position? Make more babies. How about this? Take an average American man, good old earnest man. Okay, how are your policies going to make his life better? Okay, we're talking about a voter. A good old boy. How is he benefiting from this scheme to, if we had 30 billion people, then we could feed 30 billion people?
That was not my scheme. You just, again, one more time, you're completely mischaracterizing and strawmanning my position. I never made the affirmative statement that we needed 30 billion people on planet Earth. You just made the thing. You made it up out of the blue so that you could argue with a straw man. Bad faith tactics, by the way, Vaush, but they won't work.
You aren't making any affirmative.
So again, I'll go ahead and make the affirmative statement for the policies that I would want to see. Yes, I would absolutely be against abortion. That would be a number one, and that would be a pro-natalist policy, not an anti-natalist policy. You haven't made an argument for how that would be anti-natalist. That's insane. And then how this would benefit streamline America is we need to have workers ourselves here. We need to have a replacement rate for our own population in order to sustain itself. Other populations, which we recruit immigrants from, they're also in free fall collapse. You cannot, and you might take issue with the language, but they're in at least a birth rate collapse. You can't endlessly take from other populations, which are also in collapse. This is a serious and significant global problem that needs to be addressed. It's beneficial to everybody to address it. Also, if you're just looking at the simple metrics for women, women are happier with children. Across the board, this is true. They are happier and report their happiness level as being higher with children. There's no study that shows otherwise.
Is that a bit of research there, or is it just women with children tend to be happier? Is it causative or correlative? Do you know the difference between the two?
Yeah, but what are you talking about?
Is it causative or correlative?
In this particular case, according to Pew, anyway, it looks like it's both causative and there's a correlation there.
Okay, can you tell me what the difference is between a causative and a correlative?
Yeah, one causes and one's a correlatory. There's lots of correlatories, but correlatories can be part of a cause too, Vaush.
Okay, so what in the study indicates that they, in Pew Research polling, this is extraordinary. I've never heard that Pew Research
because they ask them before you had kids, were you happy? And they went no. And then they said, well, after you had the kids, were you happier? And it wasn't due to the kids, and they said yes. That's how.
Okay. So, quick question. Do you think it might be beneficial to the happiness of those mothers that they actually chose to have those kids? Like, do you think that a mother who was forced to have a child might be less happy with that child because the abortion was outlawed?
Well, that's not force.
That is forced to have a child. Right now,
no, that's not force.
A mother can choose to stop complaining about the framing. Do you not understand?
Then stop lying about the framing. It's not force. Tell me how it's forced.
I'm sorry. Listen, I live in a world of facts and not feelings, and the idea that the state preventing a woman from having an abortion is not forcing them to have the child is just lunacy. I'm sorry. I don't subscribe to your feminine Christian
then
delusion.
You need to explain how it is.
No, because
that is force.
It's a reframing because you want to argue about abortion, and the God's honest truth is that I just don't care what your opinion is on it. I want you to answer the question.
I already answered your question. It's not force. So I reject the premise.
That's not the question. Do you not understand how a woman who has been forced to have a child, as opposed to choosing to have a child, might be less happy with having that child? I've already answered this twice. It's not force. That's not answering the question. Yeah, it is answering the question. Okay, if it's not, then you literally can't. You the fact
when the moderator talks, just everyone be quiet. I'm just going to quickly
go right ahead, Alex.
So the actual question, you don't like his framing of using the word force, which is fine. But the point Vaush is trying to make, don't you feel that babies whose parents didn't really want to have them are going to be more suboptimal to parents whose babies did want to have them? That's actually a larger point. That's the question he's trying to ask you.
Okay. If you're making the correlatory there that there could be some increase in women who are unhappy because they weren't allowed to have an abortion, I can accept that framing.
That was the question that I asked, yes.
Yeah, sure, I can accept that, but who cares?
Oh, well,
it's tangential.
Well, that's interesting because this whole time you've been disingenuously pretending you care about increasing the happiness of women, and now we get that. So, yeah.
It's tangential.
That's my point. I know you don't care about the happiness of the people involved. You just want Christian nationalism because it's the preferred brand of fascism.
No, I'm saying that this particular argument is tangential. Whatever it would be for a reduction in happiness would be negligible in comparison to what society gains by outlawing abortion.
Oh, wait, compared to what society society gains. Oh,
Yeah.
so you're not actually talking about
Christian
individual-
ethics is a holistic approach to society.
You
just so you
opened
know.
this whole thing by talking about what would make people happier, and now when we're on a topic that, well, you're like, oh, well, actually, it would make people less happy, but who cares? Society would.
Yeah,
gain.
I'm not a utilitarian. Happiness is not my ultimate
what you
anything.
are- what
That's
you
part
are
of your
then-
worldview.
What you are then is a liar, because initially you framed this as a way of increasing people's happiness. What could we do to make people happier? Well,
no,
I think we should have the
no,
children.
that's ridiculous.
And then
Me
when it's
saying,
like-
me
and
saying
then-
that this is an
hold
added
on,
benefit.
Wait, hold on, calm down. It's fine. And then when
It's
you're
an
like,
added benefit, Vaush.
and then when after much prying, you acknowledge that there is an element of forcing birth that would make people less happy.
No, there's
you're like,
no element of forcing birth.
You're like, well, actually, I didn't really care about that. I know this is why your ethics are ungrounded.
No, my ethics are the only ones which are grounded. Tell me, what's a util?
What? Hold on. What do you want to maximize for?
I'm not a utilitarian.
So wait, what do you want?
For me, for Christian ethics, that would be a sequence of duties and overlap in virtues.
Okay, and making people happy is not one of those duties and virtues.
I just said there's overlap.
Overlap. Okay, so what are they?
Like all ethical systems have overlap. Like a utilitarian such as you, there's overlap with duty, correct?
It's not a matter of overlapping.
No,
Making
it's a matter of
people happy is
overlap.
an axiomatic value.
Wait. It's an axiomatic value that there's no duty for utilitarianism?
I don't know what you're referring to when you talk about duty. Utilitarianism isn't very purgatory when it comes to stuff like that. Duty. It's
not. Then tell me what a util is. Then tell me what a util is.
It's about maximizing for the values that you have an axiomatic preference towards.
And do people have a duty? Do people have a duty to fulfill those utils?
That's a very complicated question. I don't know.
Yeah, because you can't answer the question, can you?
Well, it's philosophy. There's not exactly a right or wrong answer. You have beliefs.
There's no duty to fulfill your utils, Vaush?
Well, it really genuinely depends. Yeah. Could you dedicate 19 hours of your day every single day to converting one single person and saving them from the fires of hell? You could. That might, in fact, be a responsibility, depending on your sect of Christianity, to save those from oblivion, from whether or not you believe in purgatory or damnation or whatever.
Yeah, so is there a duty for people to enforce utils? Now you're avoiding my question, right, Alex?
Wait. I asked you a question.
And I asked you one. I answered yours and asked you one.
No,
I answer mine. Do you have a duty? You said there's no overlap. Overlap is just silly to say. Is there overlap with duties in utilitarianism or not, Vaush?
I don't understand what you're asking. What time is the plane? The question that you're asking.
No, I'm asking you if you believe that the thing people should do should maximize utility. Do they have a duty then to maximize utility or not?
That really depends on which subset of utilitarian ethics.
That depends on what you mean by the thing you're asking me. That I asked you to explain what you mean.
If you asked, so let me explain to you what the concept of ethics is. If you ask me how I root my ethics and what I think people should do, I can answer that. I don't know why you screeching about duty and overlap. I don't
root your ethics.
I don't think you know what these terms mean. In the
no, I know what they mean. Root your ethics for me, then ground them.
Hold on, I can't let you run away from what I asked you. What do you want? What outcomes do you want?
I don't. I've already told you that my worldview is not based solely on outcomes. That would be utility and consequentialism.
There's a highly masculine logic here. It's my ethics are not tied to reality. So
what do you mean they're not tied to reality? I said they're not solely tied to outcomes.
So what are you trying?
So here's an example of this. I'll give you an example so that you understand. And you're going to answer my question. I just don't have an answer. Hey, Vaush, I just answered yours. Vaush, I'll ask you this directly. Is it immoral? Is it immoral for somebody to have sex with a dead body? Is that immoral to do?
Do you think it is?
Yes.
Okay, so explain to me why.
I think you have a duty not to do so via divine command.
Where does that duty come from?
It's divine command. Now back to where I was at. You need to answer. No, I just answered 4 of your questions. Now answer mine.
No. You haven't.
Stop you keep evading and answer. Is it immoral or not?
Vaush, to be fair, Andrew did answer your question on this one, so I do think
answer mine. Is it immoral to have sex with a dead body or not, Vaush?
Yeah, probably shouldn't do that. Seems bad.
Okay, why?
Because I think that if nothing else, leaving aside the biological answers for that, I think we have very strong cultural precepts of right for the dead. I think that this is really touchy ground because rights of the dead is complicated because they're not living people. But there are things even in a utilitarian framework where you can acknowledge that there is a kind of broader cultural respect that we have for subjects that go outside the purview of pure human behavior.
And so last question. Yeah. Last question, and then I'll answer your.
Well, I just want to know what you want.
Almost done. I'm almost done. I just want to know this. If all things were equal, and a person having sex with a dead body did not negatively affect anybody through utility. There was no negative utils that you could point to. Would you be for it?
No, for it, I wouldn't.
Would you allow people to do it? Yeah.
Would I allow people to? I think it is unethical in that context still because of rule utilitarianism. Now, if you could stop projecting your kink onto the discussion, I would.
Why would this be against rule utilitarianism?
Because rule utilitarianism. I can't explain all ethical philosophy to you because
you don't need to. I know what a rule utilitarian is. So
then why are you asking me?
Because a rule utilitarian would still have to follow utils. In this particular case, at all thing equal, there is no negative utils which are applied. Your answer should be, as a utilitarian, to say that that's fine. I don't see how you could get away because the point, regardless of rule utilitarianism,
otherwise everything would just be act utilitarianism. The point of rule utilitarianism is that you have sort of social boundaries and guidelines and ethical expectations that exceed individual assessments of the
unless they give because those give negative utils. Okay, so that's why I said all things equal. There's no negative utils.
No, so I can't explain if you don't understand. Okay, here's a good example. Okay, imagine so. It is unethical to punch somebody, like out of nowhere. That's generally not good. You shouldn't do that. However, imagine a person had like divine precog, and they could know for an absolute fact that if they punch this one random dude on the street, it will actually be good for them. Because when they go to the hospital for their broken nose, it'll be discovered that they have a relatively benign brain cancer tumor. So in reality, punching them will be a way to help them get treatment early and will actually save 30 years of their life. Right. Now, even under those circumstances, if we could know for an absolute fact that the consequence of punching that person would be morally good, I still think it would be morally right for them to be
arrested. And the reason you think that is because there would be societal negative utils. So that's why I said all things equal, there's no societal negative utils. Why would it not be okay from your worldview for people to have sex with dead bodies?
If you are detaching this from ethics so much to the point where even real utilitarianism doesn't have any consideration, you might as well be asking if it's ethical to fuck a corpse in a dream. Like you're asking about something that can't happen in reality. In reality, the consequences of rule utilitarian analysis would always apply because you're always subject to the.
Do you know what a hypothetical is? A hypothetical is not designed necessarily to be mapped onto reality.
Can you please just tell me what outcomes or what anything you want to do to reality?
I've already told you multiple times. First thing I would do is stop abortion. Second thing I would do is put a halt on underage people being able to be allowed to have unfettered access to pornography on the internet.
No, wait. The ethics I wanted to know. So you
yes, this would be Christian ethics. Christian ethics. Do you need me to break those down for you?
Yes, please. I want to know what you're trying to do here. So Christian
ethics work around virtues and they work around duties. And there is overlap with outcomes sometimes because duties sometimes lead to outcomes which can be negative, and so you adjust duties accordingly. Yes.
What tells you what a duty is?
This is divine command for us Christians.
Yeah, so what tells you? How do you know?
We would know this through church authority.
Through church authority?
Yes.
So just any old pastor, like your whole ethical system would change?
No, churches are a whole holistic system. There's only two churches which exist, the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. There's a series of
Wait, are you Catholic or Orthodox out of curiosity?
I'm Orthodox. There's a series
I'm sure. Wait, when did you convert?
2 years ago.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure. Okay.
What does this have to do with anything? Do you have a refutation or not?
Oh, refutation of what argument, of what logic?
That there's only whole holistic churches.
Yeah, I'd say that there are like a fucking million Protestant churches. Yeah.
How can a Protestant church operate as a holistic church if they don't recognize church authority?
What is that? They are their church authority.
They can't be their church authority because they believe in sola scriptura. They get all of their ethical commands through the Bible alone.
Okay, so hold on really quick. So do you think hold on, which is correct then, the Catholic or the Orthodox church authority?
The Orthodox church authority is correct, yeah. Okay,
so not the Catholic.
Even the Catholics recognize that the church authority of the Orthodox is also correct.
Okay, so you agree then with the precepts of the current Pope and all of the statements that he's made?
No. They agree with us. We don't agree with them.
Whoa, hold on. He was chosen by God, was he not?
No.
Who then where in the Orthodox Church?
One more time. You're not listening, so just listen and you'll get this. The Catholics agree with us in our church doctrine. We don't agree with theirs.
So your doctrines are different?
Yes, we don't have popes. But
Then
they
agree with
concede that we have correct theology and church authority. Yes.
Even though you disagree with them. How does that work?
We don't agree with them. They agree with us. I just said this 4 times.
So, right, you've said it, but it doesn't.
What are you, bro?
If they think
Guys,
that
I would generally like to avoid.
I want to know. Like, this is
I
like
just said this 4 times.
So you've said it, but it doesn't make sense. So
how does it not make sense?
I'm trying to explain.
Vaush agrees with me, but I don't agree with Vaush. What's wrong with that statement, Vaush?
So considering the fact that churches...
No. What's wrong with that statement, Vaush? Answer my question, Vaush. Stop pivoting from every question I ask you. I just answered all of yours.
Come on. If you get so triggered, we can't even talk. There's no point.
Bro, you just pivot. Stop pivoting. Stop pivoting.
Let him finish answering.
Why won't he answer? You won't force him answering mine. Only me answering his. So force him answering mine now.
Hang on. I literally did that like 10 minutes ago. I forced him to answer the question. Let's just let him ask his question. I promise you. After that, if he doesn't answer your question, I will force that as well.
Ask Vaush. Why does it make no sense?
Sure. Yeah. Because churches, and I know this for a fact with the Catholic Church, not only are there like different groups of the Catholics, right? It's not just one group, and there are groups of the Catholics who don't agree with the Pope and this, that, the other, but also considering the fact that churches tend to have pretty holistic worldviews when it comes to all of the precepts of their religious text and authority and all the ways in which they should act and all their ethical precepts. The idea that the Catholic Church could just wholesale endorse the Orthodox Church, while the other way around doesn't really work. If the Orthodox Church believes things that are contradictory to the Catholic Church couldn't endorse those contradictory practices. That doesn't help me understand. I'm curious.
They agree with us, and they agree with our doctrine. We do not agree with their doctrine. So it's like Vaush saying, I agree with everything Andrew says. Okay, but I'm still going to live my life and whatever differently than how Andrew does. Okay, you can still both of these things can be true at the same time without any problem. Now back to my question.
But now it's
my turn. Remember,
I just answered yours. I've never talked to a member of the Orthodox
just answered your question. Now,
Vaush, let him ask the question.
I have to catch up on my religious history before I can challenge these big brain points.
Yeah. So now, kind of back to my question. Yes, there's only 2 churches which have actual holistic views. So Protestants, generally speaking, do not, and they actually concede that they don't because they can't. Now, when you're talking about Christian nationalism in and of itself, of course, I would always advocate for my church to be the church that was, cooperating with the government, or even in some cases being the government if necessary. But you yourself would advocate for the same thing with your communism. You don't want MAGA communism. You don't want tanky communism. You want Vaush brand. You want Vaush brand communism. So the criticism applies to you as much as it applies to me.
Andrew, is there a question there though?
I have no idea.
Okay. So the question becomes: is that not true?
Okay.
That different people have different ideas. Yes, I've noticed that happens sometimes in my
day-to-day. So you would advocate for your brand of this. So whatever criticism you want to give me for the fact that there's tons of sects of Christianity, this also is true of communism. You have to contend with that as much as I do.
Well, there aren't any sects of communism. There are different ideas, sure. But I guess my curiosity would be...
What do you mean they're not sects? What's a sect?
I think that sect is a religious term, is it not? Does it just refer broadly to different groups of people? Because if that's the case, sure, there are plenty of sects of communism.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I assumed it was religious connotation. I don't know what this was in response to. I guess the issue is that I still have no idea what your fundamental ethical basis is. I think that
is Christian? Then tell me what Christian ethics are.
How the fuck should I know?
I just explained them to you.
Completely incoherent every time I talk to a Christian, so I have no idea. I will never know. I don't think. I asked you and you got mad at me, so I feel like...
No, I didn't get mad at you. I explained them to you.
So, okay, where does your divine command theory come from?
God.
Okay, how do you know your God is the correct one?
Well, regardless, even if I was wrong, let's just assume for a second I was completely wrong and my God was not the correct one. This really doesn't change the question of Christian nationalism and whether I think that both the results and the things that I want to see in society would be correct. So regardless of even if all of the beliefs from which I derive divine command would be false, the integration with the state would still be what I would advocate for, just like you, the communist. Even if your beliefs are fundamentally false, based on nothing more than your ideas, you still want to integrate them and see them in society. So we're not here to have a religious debate over whether God is real. We're here to have a debate over whether or not Christian nationalism is something that can even be done. I propose that it is, and I propose that the ideas are better than your communist outlook, which we're much closer to than we are a Christian outlook.
God willing, inshallah. Yes, of course. So, again, how do you know that your God is real? Like, how do you know that you have the right set of
Why does that? What is that? If you can tell me what this has to do with the topic of the debate, I'll engage with it.
It's literally the foundational position of your entire ethical
Okay,
system.
well then, why? How do you know communism is true?
Okay, sure. I mean, we can talk about my ethical system. So, as a utilitarian, I believe in maximizing a set of axioms that I've arbitrarily determined to be things that I prioritize. I think.
So you don't know it's true.
I don't think you can make metaphysical assessments.
Well, then why are you asking me what's true? Who gives a shit?
Because I'm not making a determinative statement about my.
Is anything ever true?
No, wait, hold. Well, I mean, that really depends on what you mean by true. But you're the one making.
So can you know objective truths? Can you know something is 100% true? Can you know that?
It really depends on the definitions. You'd have to define all of your terms. But also, you're the one, the legitimacy of your claims sort of rests upon the idea that your moral beliefs, your duties, your precepts, your obligations, or whatever, are ones that I should respect. Whereas my axioms are things like human happiness, which I challenge you. If you don't respect things like human happiness, I would argue that you don't even have a right to be dictating policy for anybody, because
based on what? You just said that your system is arbitrary. So why should I respect an arbitrary system that doesn't even claim to have any sort of command other than what you come up with out of your own brain as a preference?
This is like you getting upset with somebody else because you're arguing that their decisions aren't even made by the invisible friend that you have. Like, this isn't a battle.
Who are your decisions made by? You?
So do you believe that human happiness is a worthwhile goal in terms of maximization?
I think that happiness is something that should be adjusted for, but it's not the primary duty of people to make other people happy.
Adjusted for. Okay. So do you think that a world in which people are happier is a better world than a world in which people are less happy, all other things being equal?
If all things were equal, I would say that if you had a happier population, that would be better than not having a happier population. Yes, than a less happy population with all things equal. Now, let me ask that question back to you. Okay, if all things were equal and people prospered, but they were less happy than a nation that prospered less and that nation was happier, which nation would you prefer to prosper? Which one would you prefer to live in?
What do you mean by prosper?
So their health is better, their dynamics are better, almost everything is better. They're just a little bit less happy than the other nation.
A little bit less happy?
Yeah, just a little bit less.
Well, I feel like those things would kind of be factored into the happiness. But if you're arguing like...
I just said all things equal, Vaush. I answered your question in good faith, answered mine in good faith. If all things are equal, one population is just slightly less happy, but the other population by every other metric is doing better than the population that's just slightly less happy.
But that's not all other things.
It's your moral imperative to go to the population which is less happy.
You can't.
Yeah, it's baked into the hypothetical. All things equal.
You can't say all things equal and then say every other thing is different.
You can't ask me the same question.
Wait, hold on. I'm answering your question.
This is the most bad faith debate tactics I've ever seen.
Oh my god, I'm answering your question. You're so like right off the cuff. You're so ready to be.
Then do it. Then answer it.
I was just pointing out it's funny that you would say all things being equal, but then you would say
answer the question.
Every other thing is different.
Yeah.
I guess that would. I guess I'm just struggling to imagine. But if it's like they're much healthier and more prosperous, I guess I think it would really depend on other circumstances because there are other axiomatic values that I think you could adjust for.
So then happiness is not the primary value. So then shut up, Vaush. Your argument's stupid. Your fucking argument's stupid.
So no, it's one of them. That's why I said axioms with an S. There are multiple things that you would try to.
So why tell me? Andrew, we can't accept your system because it doesn't make happiness the primary thing. And then when I give you the same exact example back, you also claim happiness can't be the primary thing. There's multitudes of things that you have to adjust for, Vaush.
Okay, so what are the multitudes of things for you?
So I would look at virtues. I would look at duties. I would look at outcomes. I would look at all of these as a holistic.
Outcomes
as a holistic.
So you notice how every time I ask you for specific questions about what it is you're trying to do or what changes you're trying to make, you sort of generalize by waving your hands at this broad, vague, indeterminable like group of virtues that you probably don't actually subscribe to or believe in. Early on in this debate, you
which virtues do you think I don't subscribe to? You haven't even asked me what they are.
So I
You haven't
can't
even
know.
asked me what they are.
I have.
You've only
I've been
asked me general
asking,
questions.
dude. You can't be like, bro. You haven't. You didn't even ask. I've been
You
asking
didn't.
for like half an hour. For
No,
you, to
you
give
just
me
said, give me a
some
broad, you say,
understanding of
give me a broad overview. And when I do, you say, why didn't you give me anything more specific?
What?
If
No,
you have a
hang on.
specific,
To be fair, Andrew did say about banning abortion. That's one he gave, and the second one he gave is I know there was one more. It was something about
So those are policy positions, but
Right.
why?
you asked for those too. I've answered every question you've had, and you've been as evasive as possible.
So why are these things virtues? What is a virtue? Give me an example. Policies to maximize what?
So, if you're talking about virtues themselves, when you were talking about virtue as morality, virtues are the building blocks of what makes a person. So, we're looking at the actual behaviors of the person to judge whether or not the person is moral. That would be a virtue.
Okay,
So, I can give you many of those types of virtues. I think you would likely agree with them. But with the virtue in Christian ethics comes duty. So you have a duty, for instance, to obey Lord Jesus Christ's teachings. You have duties to do these things as well. So these things work together. The church itself has given virtues, which are passed down from Christ Lord, who explains what these virtues are supposed to be and how you are supposed to act and behave in society and how you're supposed to act and behave towards other people or untowards to other people.
And why
under your system? Why should I listen to yours? It's the same criticism back.
So I keep answering this, and
yeah,
no,
yeah,
please, you
okay,
can't keep
fine. I'll give you the
misunderstanding
same answer because it's axiomatic.
So that's not what I was going to say. You don't.
But
even
that's what your answer was. Your answer was just that it's
earn,
axiomatic.
You have to earn the right to be blasé and dismissive about another person's ideas. You have to know what they are first. So the difference is, I don't think you can make determinative claims about the metaphysical. I think that in order to have any ethical system, you have to admit that there is a degree of arbitrarity and bias, and you have to work from that. The problem that I have with divine command theory is not that it's metaphysical in nature, because so is mine. The difference is that I acknowledge the arbitrarity, something I think everyone has to.
Why would that make it better?
You have to let me finish, because you make it up. So it's like
so do you.
So no, there's
it's the same criticism applied. So do you,
please, Andrew. You are so ready to interrupt. Okay, so there is a huge.
Well, otherwise you'll go on a diatribe for the next year.
You could learn from it. There is a huge difference between saying I don't think we can make determinative metaphysical statements. However, I do think
is that a determinative statement?
Andrew, let's let Vaush finish his point, and then you can respond.
Go ahead.
However, if we decide to prioritize these things, I think it's good for people. So, for example, I don't think it's possible to objectively. Yes, that's the point.
That's
the difference is I'm the one 10,000 years ago who says I don't know why the lightning strikes, and you're the one who says that it must be because the gods are angry. You make fun of me for not being willing to make a statement you can't justify, but that's your weakness and my logic. So I can acknowledge
you don't have any logic.
Weakness of metaphysical arguments, and I think it's a necessary presupposition when discussing ethics. Your arguments rely on a presumptive statement about the metaphysical, God, that you can't justify, and that is the critical difference. If you asked me, how do you know that human happiness is good to prioritize for? I would answer, you know what? I don't think I can objectively prove that. I think I can gesture at what human happiness has done for the world.
So then you have nothing.
And I think that it makes people better. I think that it improves.
So then you. So I want to tell you.
Almost done.
Okay. So when you're almost done, how much longer does that mean?
I'll give him another 30 seconds, and then I'll let you interrupt.
Yeah. So the difference with you is that for your positions to make sense, you're referring to like the word of God. You have to explain why that should be listened to. My argument for why my axioms are relevant is to gesture at the world and say, is happiness not good? That's the most I can do. Yours is to say, well, you also can't prove your axioms, which I know. That's the point, but you have to prove yours, because otherwise you're essentially engaging in like a postmodernist defense of not believing in God while repeating his suppositions. It makes no sense.
As stated before, and you just demonstrated, any criticism you move towards me is equally applied to you. You just got done stating that your system is arbitrary. Let me finish. That your system is arbitrary, that your system is not grounded, that you yourself and your axioms cannot be demonstrated, while demanding that I demonstrate mine. However, if I'm going from your worldview, which I'm just trying to do, I'm just trying to go from your worldview, the utilitarian worldview, I still can make a better case for why Christian ethics in society is far superior to your libertarian communism, and have made good arguments for why that is the case, even just using birth rates, and you have refuted none of it. This is a joke. By the way, you say that you can't make a deterministic statement, which is a deterministic statement. How dumb are you, Vaush?
Again, I refer to my anecdote about 10,000 years ago watching lightning crash in the sky, where you're like, dude, yeah, I think it's the angry men in the sky. You don't even know what it is. You admit you don't know. So now you're saying that I'm wrong when I say it's angry men in the sky. It's like returning to like primeval logical fallacies. I feel like you're in, like, the shadow puppets could dance on the walls in front of you, and you could like have your entire ethical system be rewritten.
Well, Vaush, do you agree with me that you would not actually have to demonstrate the existence of God in order to have a nation which was governed by a church, or who had a synergistic relationship with a church, even if they couldn't prove God? Because if you agree to that, then that has nothing to do with the debate, me proving God is real to Vaush.
If you want to make an argument for the existence of that state, then yeah, you kind of would need to, because why else would I care about the responsibilities laid out by Christ?
Why would we care about the responsibilities laid out by utilitarians, which are arbitrary and can't be demonstrated by the utilitarian's own mouth?
So again, I don't know how many times I can keep explaining this to you, but you seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding of what a prescriptive meta-ethical statement is. You know what I think? Hold on, because this could go on forever, and like the whining of Christians is fun up to a point. I don't think you actually believe in any of this, including the religion. I think that we saw this at the very beginning of the debate, where you pretended that human happiness,
nothing is a declarative statement is true according to you.
You
so
really
who cares?
do sound like a nagging wife, don't you? The way you keep talking over other people, but your voice will never be as deep as mine.
That's
you
me,
can't
not
hit
you.
my lows. You can't hit my bass.
I have a degree in sociology.
Does that make you feel better?
Wait, do you have a degree in
sociology?
Are you threatened by my education? Did you know that liberals tend to be better
well,
educated?
At some point, maybe you would use it to make an argument. That'd be great.
It's like I'm trying to explain sociology to like a monkey, and it is true that my degree is failing me somewhat. So I can't convince you that you're meta-ethically retarded. Let me try this. Okay?
That's because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
You don't know what meta-ethics are, right? I agree. So it's like you'd have to do too much work to begin with. The problem ultimately is that you don't believe in anything you're saying. If a person actually believed in Christian ethics, there are a trillion things you would care to fix about the world. The cruelty and graft and vice and sin, the hatred and misery. But you are largely...
That would require people. Hold
on. He made a very strong statement. Let's let him try to explain what his reasoning is. Go ahead.
See, I know Christians. A lot of my extended family are Christians,
and I know
good
Christians
too. Oh, you literally cannot help yourself.
Go ahead, Vaush.
And a lot of them, when you talk about what is sin, what is of concern of Christ, there is so much misery in this world. But I've seen your politics, and I know what you believe, and you just believe the same shit that like regular fascists believe, more or less. Like the Christian conservatism thing is often like promoted by people with a very low investment of Christianity. It's the same way that fascists wrap themselves in the flag before.
Now I'm a fascist.
Argument. Your name was Big Papa Fascist.
Yeah, but you also know that was a debate handle that was explained to you, and you know.
Okay, gotcha. That was right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wait. Can you tell me what fascist policies I want?
The Christian nationalism angle.
No, you can't make the claim I'm a fascist, and you claimed I'm a fascist.
Oh my God, dude! Is this going to be every time I talk for more than 5 seconds? Like, I can let you talk for a while. I admit I'm talkative too, but like, holy shit! I don't think anyone who is genuinely motivated by the word of Christ could ever have a conversation like this and be like, oh, you know what I would change? Abortion. Like, there are so many trillions of things. A real Christian would be outraged at like Donald Trump's presidency, for example, because he's one of the most flagrant grifters and most openly anti-human individuals to ever occupy the office. But it's always like, oh, so what angle are you going to bring? What Christian angle are you going to bring to governance? Oh, the exact same stuff every other right-winger does, with very little emphasis on what Israel is.
So no argument. So how about what I'm asking? Hang on. No. How about you answer now for your accusation? You need to answer for your accusation now that I'm a fascist.
What if we
Can you
just
tell me
talked
what
about-
fascist policy I endorse
just
or
talked about the
real quick,
policies-
Andrew?
no?
do you want
He needs to answer, Alex.
Hang on. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what you want. Do you want to move off the previous point? and
Well,
move
first
straight
I
to
want all I'm
fascist?
asking Vaush to do. He made the qualifier. He claimed I was a fascist.
Nope.
I would like you to give me the list of fascism that you go by, and then what we'll do is we'll go one by one and see which one of us is more fascist.
Notice how
Okay.
he wants to. Well, hold on. Notice how like he gets triggered by.
Notice
one
how
word
he
that I
made
say.
an
And
accusation and
literally-
can't back it up.
He can't do it. He like in a broader. Point
It was
that I'm
my turn to
making
talk,
about
Vosh.
the
It-
political.
you
Vosh,
remember how it was my turn to
Vosh, to be fair, I did let you talk for a while. You
Yeah.
did make
Sure.
that
Well, I'm
claim.
trying to move the argument
Yeah, so
forward.
now
It's
it's
all
my
I want
turn.
to do.
Now
he's
it's my
trying
turn,
to
Vosh.
say it
I know, and
indefinitely.
I'm going to move it right after we get through this. But to be
Mhm.
fair, he did make that claim. I think
He
it's
did
only
make the
fair.
claim. So Vosh, you
I
make the
think-
claim, and what
Sure,
you do, you
okay,
do this.
yeah.
It's my turn,
Hey,
Vosh.
Andrew,
Vosh,
Andrew,
my
yes,
turn,
I'm
Vosh.
answering. Yeah,
Hang on.
Let me finish my
Bro,
question.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Hang on,
Let me finish
So,
it,
Vosh-
and then you can answer it.
This is so stupid.
Whoa.
So one more time,
I'm
Vosh,
going to mute both of you.
hang on, Vosh. You often do this during debates where you make these.
I'm muting both of you. Okay. I'm sorry. I hate doing this, but okay. So, Bosch, you did make that claim. It's a pretty strong statement. So, I think Andrew is within his rights to ask for clarification on why you want that. And after that, I promise you we can move the conversation forward. Okay. I'm muting both of you. Go ahead, Vosh.
Am I back?
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
So why?
Wait, what was the question?
Andrew's asking, why do you think I'm a fascist? What are the things that make me a fascist?
Oh, well, literally, he called himself Big Papa Fascist. But if you want like an actual, like, I don't know, reasoning beliefs, I would say that being like a political advocate for Donald Trump or the Republican Party would count towards one. I think also, I'm pretty sure, like, I didn't expect he would like pretend to be offended over this because we both know perfectly well he fits my definition. But I'm pretty sure that literally every time I've seen him make any prescriptive statement about politics, it perfectly lines up with what a fascist would believe in. So he's like anti-immigration. He makes statements about like the Western nationalism and like the white birth rates declining. He talks about like a need to get rid of degeneracy and imposition of like far right conservative politics as a way of getting. So he's like nodding along with all this. This was just a waste of time. He just wants to like filibuster before we get to
why are those fascist?
oh my
policies?
god, dude. Do you want to like
You don't
all
get to
the way back
pivot.
to the definition
What I
of
want you
fascism?
to do, because you've done this, I've seen you do this several times.
How is
in
this
debates.
a policy?
It's my turn,
how is
Vosh.
this- what does
I just
why
let you
mean?
talk, Vosh. My turn.
Really quick, Alex.
It's my
was it
turn.
true
Not
that
really
after
quick. It's my
Alex,
turn.
Hang
After
on.
I answered his question, didn't we move on? Did I not?
No,
just
it's
answer
my
his
turn.
question?
Vosh. It's my
you
turn.
got you let him ask one or two follow-up questions. It is a fair question because you did make a
I
pretty
answered
strong claim.
it. So those all meet my standards.
He
for when I
doesn't
would call
want to
someone a
allow
fascist.
me to. He doesn't want me to speak.
Let's
at
let
all.
Andrew ask one or two qualifying questions, and then we can move on. I think it's only
Vosh,
fair because
you go by a list for what you consider to be fascist. Would you be willing to pull up that list and compare them with me 1v1 so that we can determine which of us actually follows more fascist policies than the other?
Dude, I
Or advocates
thought
for
the
them.
whole point was moving. This is like the hardest anyone has ever filibustered while talking to me. I'm sorry. In that broader point you made, you call me a fascist. Here are 17 examples of you being fascist. Can you explain to me how every single one of those is fascist? If you want to like indefinitely henpeck back and forth, I guess we can. But I consider this a concession on everything regarding Christianity.
I don't give a shit what you consider a concession. Are you willing to do that or not? Just say no. I'm not willing to do it.
I just think it's funny that you get very.
I think it's funny that you can make accusations and then you won't back them up because you're a coward.
You get really angry.
Yeah, you're a coward, bro.
Whenever I poke you, I've
Actually,
Andrew, I've
make
already
the
started doing
argument.
it. I've already.
Then do
said
it.
I'll
Then do it.
Okay. So
Stop fucking around and do it. Stop being a wuss and
Dude,
do it.
He's like trying to alpha male me. He's like, after an hour and a half of being talked over, time for me to bring out my big Tate pants.
Are you gonna do it?
You want to not be a coward?
You're still
Do
not doing it.
Brug, for can you?
You're still
can you, like,
evading.
project
Bosh,
your mouth forward?
it is a fair qualifying question.
Well, so Alex, the problem
Sometime
is,
today, Vosh.
so Alex,
But
just
hang
to
on,
be clear, what he's suggesting is that for every in a broader point that I was making about him not believing in Christianity, which he doesn't, he gets upset that I call him a fascist when he literally self-labeled as a fascist.
Where's that list?
He said, hold on. He asks, hey, can you qualify that? I then list like 12 things that I say are fascist of him, which he nods along to
No, you
all of
didn't.
them. And now what he's saying is, let's go over an exact 14-point definition of fascism so that on every single one we can check off every point on every claim made. Now,
and
Alex,
see if they apply to you.
Now, Alex, We can do this. But I did want to debate Christian nationalism, and I will admit this does just seem like a pivot away from the subject because
you called me the fascist. I didn't call you anything.
You called yourself the fascist, actually, Andrew.
Okay.
No, you called me the fascist.
Hang on. Stop. I'm going to make a reasonable compromise. We'll spend 2 to 3 minutes. Andrew can ask us qualifying questions. After that, we will move on to conversation. But for those 2 minutes, Vaush, I do want you to answer the questions that he asked, and then we're going to move on.
Oh, sure. Ask me direct questions, Andrew. Not like
where do you get your definition of fascism from?
I think that, like most broader socio-political definitions, you kind of pull from a wide varieties of texts. But for the most part, I refer to Umberto Eco's 14 points.
Yes, I agree that you do, and I've seen you do it. Can you pull up those 14 points, and we'll go through them point by point, and I will see if they apply more to you or more to me.
Do you think we can do that in the remaining 1 to 2 minutes? That was
Let's just pick. You know what? Just pick your favorite 2.
My favorite 2.
Let's just do 2. Yeah.
Sure. A practical list for identifying fascists. Hold on, let me find the one that actually. There we go. Not the one that just lists like the simplified version. Okay. So let me read these all out loud in the spirit of this debate. And I need to. 2. Well, I don't remember everything from that. I've only read. So
you can't pick. You can't pick 2, even though you just agreed to do that.
Let's let him go through the list. Yeah. This is exactly what you want. So let's let him answer that.
Okay. So number 1 is the cult of tradition. One has only to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement in order to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by traditionalists, syncreticists, and occult elements. Number 2, the rejection of modernism. Quote, the Enlightenment, the age of reason, is seen as the beginning of modern depravity. In this sense, Fascism can be defined as irrationalism. Number 3, the cult of action for action's sake. Action being beautiful in itself, it must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. Number 4, disagreement is treason. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism.
Just give me 2, Vaush.
Modern
you don't
culture,
need the whole list.
Whoa!
Why are you letting him go through the whole list, Alex? He agreed to 2. He's filibustering the entire debate.
Stop. Okay, listen. Vaush gave like 4 or 5. Let's just work with what he gave you.
Yeah, which of those 2? Which 2 do you want to pick, Vaush? And see, let's see how they apply only to me and not to you.
Sure. Okay. How about number 2, the rejection of modernism? Mm-hmm. Do you want me to reread the quote associated with it?
The quote associated with it from whom?
I believe it's a quote from Umberto Eco.
Make sure that it is, and not from a third-party source.
Okay. Pretty sure I've seen this one before, but sure, let me see. While Eco is firm in claiming there's one. Yeah, I've seen this before in other websites as well, so it's definitely not just openculture.com that's referring to it. But if you want, sure. Let me Google search the quote. Yes, a practical list for identifying fascists from Umberto Eco. It is directly quoted from him. Yes.
Okay. Andrew, let's let Andrew address that.
So first, let's go with the rejection of modernism. Does this, in your worldview, mean a rejection of ethics which built the society, or a rejection of modernity when it comes to how society is acting?
The Enlightenment. When he talks about modernism, he's talking about modernity in the geopolitical sense.
So just Enlightenment principles are anti-communist, Vaush.
In his words, the Enlightenment, the age of reason, is seen as the beginning of modern depravity.
Yes, but communism is anti-Enlightenment.
No, not at all.
Yes, absolutely.
So Karl Marx is literally described as a modernist philosopher and economist.
No, by who?
Literally everyone who describes him. He objectively fits.
Literally not. No. Listen.
Sure.
When you're talking about modernity, modernity, when you're talking about modernity, I need you to explain how it is that I reject modernity. Sure. I don't reject modernity. I reject an ethical system which I'm contrary to.
So just a moment. Okay, so I Googled, is Karl Marx a modernist? I hadn't seen this brought up before in my many classes on the subject. Marx and Engels offered a profoundly modernistic critique of capitalism. And then it's from a University of Warwick page called Modernism and Marxism.
You said postmodernist.
No, I said modernist. He's not postmodernist.
Okay, but that's what you said, just so you know.
Okay, let's let Vaush finish. Go ahead.
it says, is Marxism a part of modernism? This is from Marx and Philosophy Society, .org.uk. Part 1 in sum situates Marx as a leading figure of modernism. So the thing is, Marx and communist thinkers in general, or at the very least Marx, because some communists, you can't tell with these guys, certainly with me, are very much post-Enlightenment thinkers, born of the age of reason, and believers in liberal social values. I mean, Karl Marx was a progressive of his day, wrote to Abraham Lincoln to convince him to help to free the slaves. His writings were an attempt to hold capitalism to account for not fulfilling the promises of modernism, of liberalism.
And what about his critique that he wrote about Enlightenment humanism and from a revolutionary ecological perspective, where he seemed to argue against these post-Enlightenment principles, which you are so adamant that only fascists hold?
No, anyone can criticize things.
And what about the fact that Marx himself was very anti-Jewish? There's no doubt that that's true either. So all of these things, these push
Unfortunately,
against...
that's been popular in both pre- and post-Enlightenment Europe.
Yeah, but the thing is, Vaush, is that no, I don't think that number 2 does not apply to you. You seem to reject the modernist principles as well, at least postmodernists, and you seem to want to move towards your communist worldview. I don't see how this doesn't apply to you.
So
pick another one.
Do you agree that Karl Marx, by basically every definition you can find online, is a modernist?
No, I don't think that. I don't think when we say modernist, we're talking about postmodernist, which is what you referenced and I responded to.
No, modernist. He's a modernist.
Okay, well, Christians are modernists too. I don't know what your point is.
No, Christianity is a pre-modernist system.
But by what metric? The ethics?
No, the Enlightenment, a post or pre-Enlightenment era.
The Enlightenment ethics,
which emerged.
Enlightenment ethics.
Guys, I did say 2 minutes for this. We've been going on 5 minutes. I do want to redirect.
Of course. I don't want to linger on this too long. It's about ethics and it's about political economy from Marx.
Yeah. So would you say it's the ethical distinction that makes you a modernist, or is it a rejection of the material that makes you a modernist?
Well, that really depends on why you're rejecting it. For example, like Marx rejected Hegelian thought on the ideological dialectic, but Marx is still arguably a kind of Hegelian. His rejection is an iteration upon a pre-existing trend. Like, for example, if you're Adam Smith and you're writing a systemic economic critique of previous economic forms which are themselves post-Enlightenment, you're not rejecting modernity. What you're doing is trying to improve upon it. But
is there any problem with holding Christian ethics in modernity?
No, that is literally a pre-Enlightenment belief.
Why would that be a pre-Enlightenment belief? There are Christians who exist post-Enlightenment, and by the way, just so you understand, that actually doesn't make any sense on its face. Why? What Enlightenment principles?
Motherfuckers literally defending divine command theory and arguing that he's a post-Enlightenment.
Are you going to tell me which Christian
divine command theory?
Why won't you answer the question,
Alex? This is an infinite wormhole.
What ethical?
Andrew. To be fair, I did say we were only going to talk about this for 2 minutes, but what I will do is I will let you on this topic get your last.
Most Enlightenment thinkers were Christians. So that's why I'm making the distinction between ethics and what he considers materialism. Pick your second one, Vaush. This one definitely applies to you, too.
Wait, hang on.
Pick your second one.
Stop. Andrew, I did say it was going to be 2 minutes. We went on for 5 minutes. What I will do is give you about 45 seconds to kind of defend yourself and explain why you disagree with Vaush's assessment that you're a fascist. And then let's move back to the original conversation at hand because it's gotten really, really off track. So go ahead, Andrew.
What matters is that we're having fun and
wait, Vaush, I am. Andrew's part.
Yeah. So when we're talking about kind of these distinctions, first of all, Vaush said postmodernist, but fine, I'll just give it into modernity itself. When I'm asking about the ethical distinction, I'm asking him which of these kind of modern practices he thinks are opposed to Christian ethics, or why Christian ethics itself is opposed to what he considers modernity. And I don't think he can actually do that, which is very problematic from his worldview. That's why you make the ethical distinction, then you make the material distinction when these things are talked about. So I would actually like to know the answer to this. Do you think that Christian ethics themselves are non-compatible with whatever you consider modernity to be. And by the way, just having Christian ethics, does that make you a fascist by that metric?
Okay,
so I'll answer both of those, and then we'll be done.
Let's let Vaush answer, then we'll redirect. Okay.
First of all, this is very funny because you are literally an advocate for divine command theory, arguing that we need to challenge and reject liberalism. You could not be more perfect a stereotype of an anti-modernist figure today or 250 years ago possible. You are literally repping the same argument. No, that is a direct answer. You are not only anti-modernist. This entire argument has been you proudly touting your anti-modernist beliefs. You are literally arguing for divine command theory.
That's not my question. My question is about ethics.
So, so the second question that you asked is, being a Christian ethicist automatically make you a fascist? The answer is, for one, you're not a Christian ethicist, but for two, a lot of people who claim to be are fascists.
You don't even know what Christian ethics are. You just said so,
and I never will. However, if by a Christian ethics a person just means like, oh well, the Bible says you should wash the feet of prostitutes or whatever, then no, of course that wouldn't make you a fascist. However, when people have very poor justifications for their empirical arguments, they usually defer back to something they know they won't be able to metaphysically justify, and then they can do the like, well, maybe I can't prove any of my ethics are real, but like you can't either, and then it's like, well, why even talk about anything?
Well, right? I never made the statement that I couldn't prove my ethics were real. I just made the statement that the criticism applied moves back to you just as much as it does me.
You've been able to prove God is real.
You did that none of the things you say are true, and they're arbitrary, and your systems make no sense.
Yo, Vaush, Andrew, I'll let you guys choose. You guys have the option. Do you guys want to stay on this longer, or do you want to move back to the original?
Yeah, we can move back to.
I just want to talk about policy.
We can move back to policy. That's fine.
Whatever
he wants to move back to.
I'm also going to say. We're going an hour and a half. We'll probably go for another half an hour, unless, of course, there's something that's left unfinished. So just so you guys have a mental idea. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I guess I'd like to know how to prove God exists, but like leaving that aside, because I know what rabbit hole that goes down.
If you want to have a debate over that, then I would suggest that you debate with Jay Dyer, and we'll see if your logic for utilitarianism can hold up. That would be my suggestion.
Let's go back to policy.
Yeah. Also, you don't have to prove utilitarianism to disprove a person's assertions that they've proven God. But
but the criticism refines back the other way. You realize that, right? Which is that even if I was unable to substantiate my worldview as being true, you also
the lightning
can't.
Thing again.
You also can't.
Policy.
Okay, back to policy.
Okay, so my argument is that I think it's good when things are good. That's my sort of opening line. I'm putting all my chips down on the table for this one. No argument.
Wait, what did you... I'm sorry, I must have missed what you said. What did you say?
Typical Weasley debate tactics.
Yeah, repeat what you just said.
I said, I think it's good when things are good. I think that's what I said. I wasn't actually...
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. What does good mean?
That's an excellent question. I think that we face a lot of problems today in our country and in our world broadly, and I think that it can seem very scary and very overwhelming, and there's not really a simple way to fix any of it. Obviously, if things could be fixed simply, they would have been. Like, it's not... it's never that easy. I do think that the declining birth rate is a meaningful issue. One day, God willing, every country will be up to economic par, and if they are, logically then it follows that they would have below replacement birth rates, and that's not good. I think that we can see what we need to do by looking at the country that did it worst, Japan. Japan has a ridiculously low birth rate, in large part, I think, because of its tyrannical work culture. It's made it virtually impossible to start a family or to have children or anything like that, because it's like you lose so much in your career. I think that if we look at that and we think, okay, that's how to do it wrong, so how can we make it right? And I think we should hearken back to the last time we had a real population boom in this country. I'm talking unions. The 1950s, the generation that produced the baby boomers, didn't just come back home to freshly built suburbs. They came back to better jobs than most Americans can get today. I think we need to reinvest in our society to make people happy to live and be alive, give people hope in the future. People are less likely to have kids if they don't hope for the future, you know? We got to address climate change, not only for the million other reasons, but also because it'll make people more willing to bring more life into this world, which honestly at the moment is a pretty scary
Are you ever going to tell me what good means?
Man, you're really going to run right past all that, aren't you? You're really going to go right
I
back
asked
to
you
the
a
ethics
specific
argument.
question, and I let you ramble for however long you rambled
was that
for.
rambling?
I
thought
want
that was
you
like
to
the most
tell me what
sincerity.
good. You said, I want things to be good, man. I want things to be awesome and good, and we're all, I don't know, dope smoking hippie, whatever the fuck it is. Are you going to tell me what you mean by good?
I mean, I just laid out a bunch of things that I think are
You
good.
laid up a bunch of things that you think are good, but you haven't told me what the good is. What is good?
Do you think that people
Don't
being
ask me a question,
happy
answer
with
my
good
question.
union
What is
jobs
good?
is
Don't ask me a
good?
question, answer my question. What is
But
good?
maybe you can really quickly just explain what you mean by good.
Sure, though this seems like a willful disengagement from any of the material substance.
It was your argument.
But
your argument was the
I'll
good is
make
the
sure
good.
he engages with the question afterwards. But let's just
okay.
expand on that.
Yeah, so going back to the topic we just painfully wrested ourselves away from over the past hour, when I say good, I mean in line with my utilitarian ethics, and when I say that, what I mean is that it maximizes or at least improves a number of conditions that I think are associated with positive utility. So in this case, I'm arguing in favor of something we should both agree is morally good, people being happy and people being fruitful, literally, people producing more children. So I would
what do
think
you
that
do?
we could...
So what do you do with all these vast population centers which don't follow utilitarianism and have a different version of what is good?
So do you, the things that I just talked about looking at Japan and learning what not to do, do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, no, answer my question.
Oh my God, Alex, he doesn't have anything, so he'll do anything to keep
I
the
just
argument
asked
away.
you a very specific question.
So
What
it's like
exactly
it's
is
not
your
even
question?
related to what we're talking about.
It's related. Your statement was, this is all good. All these things are good. I ask you for the definition of good. You say it's a utilitarian ethic. Okay, it's a utilitarian ethic. So what do you want to do with all these massive, vast populations that don't follow your utilitarian ethic?
Wait, hang on. Let him finish his point. What was the end of that? I missed it.
He claims, Vaush's claim was, I want to do what's good, man. And then I said, what's good? And after his rambling diatribe, he finally said, whatever gives positive utility. I said, okay, well, as a policy prescription, which is what we're talking about, what do you want to do with all of these nations which are vast and don't follow utilitarian ethics? They follow religious ethics. What are you going to do with those, Vaush?
Look, it is a fair question. It is
Alex,
related.
do you remember how we said policy a bunch a while ago? And
that would be policy.
And then I laid out like a bunch of specific policies that I think would make people happier and produce more children. And then he ignored all of it. And because I said at the beginning of
the
that,
opposite
like 2 minutes ago, I said I think good things are good. He's disingenuously latching onto that so he can avoid acknowling the fact that he has no real
bad things are bad.
Stop.
Bad things are bad.
Listen, he's literally, it's like a fucking ape in the corner, man. There's like throwing emojis, but he doesn't know I'm behind glass.
Stop. Okay, let's do this. So, Vaush, if you can answer his question, and after that, I will make sure that we go back to your initial question. He answers that in detail, and
policy.
This would be policy. What do you do with the vast populations that don't follow your stupid ass utilitarian ethic, which almost no broad nation who has religious undertones, which are most of them, follow? They don't follow your utilitarian ethics. So what's your policy in dealing with them?
So there's a couple of presuppositions here that below a low IQ, and I'm hoping that the audience doesn't have to fall into the same pit Andrew has. For one, countries don't follow quote-unquote utilitarian ethics. That's nonsensical. The fact that he would say that is a reminder of the fact that...
Hang on, Andrew, let him finish. You asked the question, let him finish.
He doesn't understand how ethics works. Countries are ruled by, and decisions within them are made by, literally millions of people. Sometimes in autocracies, it seems like it's one, but it's usually the influence of a huge number of people. And most people don't have cohesive ethical systems. The idea that the House of Saud, the Saudi Arabian, the bloodthirsty, vicious Saudi Arabian royal family, is making their decisions based on religious ethics. Like when they decide to build a giant clock tower over Mecca, they're like, well, what does the Quran say? Notice how he muted himself. He's talking to his own chat. He literally, like, he has no intention of engaging with anything.
I
can repeat back everything you just said. Would you like me to?
We're going to go on another tangent.
Would you like me to repeat back what you just said if you think I'm not listening? Would you like me to repeat back what I just said? What you just said?
Keep holding it to your memory for like...
Vaush, I want to give you a chance to finish that.
Yeah, I want to finish.
We'll redirect your initial question to Andrew.
In a couple minutes, he can repeat everything I've said back word for word as a test of his memory. It's like a fun game. The idea that like the House of Saud is making religiously oriented decisions, like they're looking in the Quran to decide what decision to make, like is ridiculous. In reality, the decisions that countries make are almost always guided by self-interest, either for the nation or for the class of people in power or for the individual in power. For the House of Saud, the decisions made are almost entirely to the benefit of the royal family. For example, in the United States of America, the decisions made are ostensibly to the benefit of the majority of people because we live in a democracy, but are really heavily slanted towards the ruling class, the elites, the bourgeoisie. So the idea that this all falls on like, well, how are you going to convince their ethical systems? Well, I'd do it the same way all countries have always managed to engage in diplomacy with each other. I would try to find a way to make it in their best interest to adopt these systems. So I actually think it's in everyone's best interest to adopt systems that prioritize the well-being of the average person, because I think it leads to stable countries. I guess I could make the argument like, hey, I think that it's best when people are healthy, happy, and able to raise families. I think those are good arguments. People make those pretty often. So following from that, what arguments could I make to France or to Germany or to Norway or hell, to Russia, to Saudi Arabia, to China to do this? And, I don't think it'd be easy, but I don't think there's any easy way to get all 8 billion people on Earth to get along, because that has literally never happened. It's always going to be an uphill battle.
So,
okay, so the question has been answered. Now, let's redirect to Vaush's initial question that he was trying to ask you. And then if you want to touch on this a little bit later, we can do that. But I promised Vaush we're going to go back to his initial question.
None of those are policies, by the way, just so you know. He never named a single policy at all. He just said I would. And by the way, he also wants to outsource his ethical system to other people, is what he just said. But okay.
Vaush, can you please repeat your initial question?
Sure. So I listed a bunch of policies. I guess his memory is not as good as he remembers, but I guess a specific one would be, given that Japan has a uniquely low birth rate and a very bad work culture, wouldn't it be sensible to look at Japan for examples on what not to do? Like maybe if we see what they're doing has led to really bad outcomes when it comes to birth rates, we could then try to prevent those things from happening in our place. So, for example, because he doesn't seem to think it's policy, there are lots of Japanese policies, laws, and cultural norms that dictate their extremely bad work culture. So maybe we could look at that, see the outcomes, and go, hey, let's not do that. Like, would that be sensible?
The policy then?
Vaush, Andrew, it is a fair question. You can follow up and ask him, hey, I don't see, what the policy is. It is a fair question. It is related to the discussion. So you got to answer that.
What would the policy be?
Andrew, just answer his question.
He doesn't know. He wasn't listening. He doesn't know.
You didn't give a fucking policy, bro. You just said we shouldn't do X.
Yes.
What's the actual policy prescription here?
So, okay, fine. Vaush, what is the actual...
I'll repeat. No, don't worry. I'll repeat it. Okay.
And then I will...
Yeah, repeat it.
I didn't make a policy prescription there. He wasn't...
Right. That's why I asked you for the third time, what's the policy?
I didn't give one. Your goal was...
Right, I know.
Yeah, it wasn't about the policy. You weren't listening.
Yeah, but I asked you what policy. You were supposed to answer, then ask me a question, but you didn't answer.
Because you didn't listen. There was no policy. You're asking the wrong question. So
how can I ask the wrong fucking question? Just answer my question.
The fact that you don't know the answer to that is so astonishing.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm just trying to repeat it, man. I'm just trying to help you understand.
I'm gonna have to start muting you guys. Okay, so listen.
Repeat the question. Can I repeat the question?
Vaush asked the question. Sorry, what?
May I repeat the question without any flourish?
Yeah, but I think we got the question. Andrew,
did we?
I personally got the question. Yeah,
I know you did, sir. I think you're doing it.
Well, if Andrew needs it, you can repeat it. But yeah. I think so. Vaush made a question that's not directly policy prescription. However, it is very much related to the topic.
Yeah, I know. Hang on, Alex. I understand, but just so that you understand, I asked him for a policy.
I have to meet you. I'm sorry. So just please answer his question, and then afterwards, I will force Vaush to answer. Give you a policy. Okay, that's the only fair way I think of doing this. I'm trying to be as fair as possible. hopefully I'm doing a good job. But yeah, so let's just do that.
What's the question, Vaush?
A rough debate. Yeah. No, happily. So, Japan has a uniquely low birth rate, and that low birth rate is almost certainly caused by a set of laws and cultural norms, mostly oriented around the work culture there. But there's a lot of stuff, Do you think that it would be sensible for us to look at all of the things that are lowering Japan's birth rate and use those as teaching tools for what not to do over here? Like if we see over there that there is
Sure, absolutely. Every nation on earth you can do that with. Now, back to my question. What would be your policy to correct that?
Sure. So, considering the fact that very bad work culture in Japan correlates to and seems to be causative of, based on what I've seen, there's a lot of research on it, lower birth rates. So we're setting up like a mathematical proof. If really bad work culture causes lower birth rates, it follows logically that good work culture should make for better birth rates. Now, it doesn't fix everything, of course, but it's one step in a larger set, right? So what makes Japanese work culture bad? Well, obviously the long hours are one, but another big one is that workers are often expected to willfully work long hours after their shift is technically ended. How are you supposed to go out and pick people up?
So what would be your policy prescription?
We have laws, strong overtime laws, that make it illegal for people to continue work like that after the official hours have been counted.
So your policy prescription in order to incentivize birth rates is to outlaw overtime.
So I think that is the fact that we have... Wait. I didn't say outlaw overtime. I said that they would be paid for it. It'd be illegal to hold them without pay after the work. You can still do overtime.
So then what? I don't understand. So if Japan has a law where you're paid for overtime, right? You just want the law in the U.S., which it already is, to be that you're paid for overtime?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why the American...
This is your big brain policy prescription?
You asked him a question, let him answer.
Yeah, you have to build a castle one brick at a time.
Oh.
So the United States has a higher birth rate than Japan by a pretty significant margin. Japan's pretty fucked. So maybe one of the reasons why it's fucked is because they do things worse than us in some specific ways. This would be an example of something that I think works to their detriment. They do not have the same kind of worker protections, and it is complicated in like the specifics. Obviously, we have to simplify this because I'm not like an expert on the Japanese economy, but I've read some articles where the expectation towards unpaid overtime and constant socializing with your boss, like drinking after work and stuff like that. I think things like this make it worse over there. And I think that there is causative evidence that it makes it worse over there. And we have it better over here, and we don't have those same issues. So maybe we can follow through with that.
But we still do. We have a 1.64 birth rate. They have a 1.34 birth rate.
That is significantly lower. So maybe the difference
well, wait a second.
Okay.
When you say significant, when you say it's significantly lower, they're really low in both areas. If all your policy prescription is to Japan is, hey, pay people for overtime, and that's already the policy prescription inside of the United States, how do you plan on outsourcing this policy? That's the whole question. You want other country to do Vaush ethics. How does Vaush want to make Japan start paying for overtime?
I'm just talking about learning what policies would be most effective to increasing the birth rate. I think that the fact that we have that policy in the United States helps. So that was one example. There are like 1,000 more that we could go over, because obviously something as nebulous and complicated as improving the birth rate is going to involve, we could talk about criminology, we could talk about economics, we could talk about, there are so many fields where you could influence the outcomes here. No single human could know even a quarter of it. Like, we're talking about a insane set of shifts. But hey, big paradigm shifts are what socialists are supposed to be all about. So I'm fine with it. Yeah.
So how would you move that big paradigm shift?
Well, we already have paid overtime in the United States.
No. Externally, Vaush.
You mean like to make Japan better about this?
Yeah. So you want to export your ethical system, right?
No, Japanese workers also want to be paid for overtime. There are labor rights organizations that have been really active there for decades. They have a lot of trouble because Japan is not that democratic. We don't talk about it that much because we mostly think of Japan as like anime and Pocky sticks, but Japan is not great politically in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And
great, but you still want to export your brand of ethics to Japan,
So,
right?
I think that the labor workers over there have been fighting for overtime pay for a long time. I mean, would supporting them be exporting my
You can just say yes. I don't even know why that's a problem to say. You just say
to
yes.
bring the answer down to your IQ level?
If you ask him a question, let him answer.
Yeah. So I guess right now the current setup, the current disingenuous setup for a gotcha is that I believe that it's good for good things to happen to people in other countries.
Now, you think it's good to export your moral system, and so I don't understand what your criticism is of other people doing it.
Hang on. Children. Let's let Vaush answer the original question that Andrew asked him.
So again, he frames this entirely in gotchas. The idea of I support labor rights organizations in Japan means I support exporting ethics, means I should support exporting ethics in all cases. The functional argument that is being made here would be that me supporting overtime pay in Japan is equivalent to Hitler invading neighboring countries. It is a level of political reductionism that is genuinely so retarded that I don't know how he put his shirt on before showing up to the debate.
I don't know how you see me with those big Coke bottle glasses, but the truth is you haven't seen any arguments either. But I am happy to see that you've finally been losing weight.
I think that worker rights are good everywhere they are practiced.
Yeah, I know. You want to export your ethical system. And the thing is the criticism applied to me is the same criticism applied to you. I know that you think that that's not big brain because I don't use enough adjectives, but it is true, Vaush.
Isn't it incredible how even after we chanted policy together, he still can't. I mean, if supporting labor rights organizations in Japan is like Adolf Hitler invading Poland or whatever, then okay, sure. I want to Lebensraum Japan by promoting their happiness and higher birth rates by doing things that are democratically desirable to the population. I believe that it's okay to make arguments because I believe in freedom. I will Lebensraum the mind space of people all around the world by doing Hitler-esque things like saying that it's good to get along and sharing is caring. I mean, we're talking like Sesame Street ethics here. So, what are we pretending to care about right now?
Vaush,
I think you're pretending to care about Japanese workers or something.
Vaush, okay. I think if you want to talk about policy, I think it'd be helpful if you ask Andrew very specific policy-related questions.
But then he would have to actually defend his side of that, so that's why he won't do it.
Sure. Do you think that we should promote better workplace culture in Japan if it raises the birth rate of that country?
If their culture was not in some way affected by it in a negative light, I would say that the positives could overwhelm that, and that if we had foreign policy, it would be within side of the Christian ethic to do so, yeah.
What does that mean if it wouldn't be detrimental to their culture?
Well, there could be other factors, for instance. So you could try, for instance, to mess with whatever the cultural cohesion is and end up drastically having a reduction in the birth rates even further without recognizing the damage that you're doing. Hard to say in that particular case, and there's overlap in the consequence, especially when it comes to duties. So again, back to Japan though, I wouldn't have a problem with say, oh, the birth rate's going to skyrocket if we start paying these people for overtime. Yes, of course, I would say you should probably pay them for overtime. However, I'm not going to disagree with the fact that I'm trying to export my own system of ethics to Japan, which Christians did successfully do, by the way.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Why would that be problematic? You're doing the exact same thing. So the criticism back is always the same. That's the point. I still haven't heard an actual criticism against Christian nationalism yet. Not one.
Alex, I genuinely don't know what he's talking about. I don't know why. It's like he had a list of gotchas that he wrote down before this, and he realized it's 2 hours in, and he hadn't tried to argue that all forms of advocating for another country to change are exactly the same.
Andrew,
so he just brought it up out of nowhere.
He just made it up.
Hang on. Andrew, repeat your last question one more time, please.
I don't think there was a question.
Yeah, I was responding to a question.
Mostly.
He was asking questions, and I was answering them.
Okay, so
now it's my turn.
Well, let's hang on. You said you want Vaush to give specific policy prescriptions.
Yeah, so now I would like to follow up on my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you want more policy? I love policies.
So moving back into the Japanese, I think that's a pretty good place to start. Right now, Japan is being drastically affected by the fact that they have such an elder care crisis. And the elder care crisis is coming, of course, because of their birth rate crisis. This is the number one thing affecting them. They've even considered opening up their borders for slight amounts of immigration in order to take care of this problem. Though the culture there seems to be adamantly against it, they are considering doing so. Do you think that the birth rate collapse there then, can we agree that that is a problem even for a utilitarian, that their birth rate is collapsing to the point they can't take care of their elderly?
Yeah, of course. I just said it's a problem.
So then all over the world, this is happening, right? And your solution to it is what?
So all over the world, the Western world right now has a below replacement birth rate. Most countries that are not in the Western world,
we have the same problem.
Are not
elder
quite
care.
There, but they're
elder
getting
care
there.
Is still a problem.
Well, elder care is always going to be an issue. They're old. Japan and China are going to have
nothing to do with what I just said. The problem with elder care here has to do with the fact that we have below replacement levels again, and even with mass migration, we can't get enough people into these jobs to take care of the elderly. Same issue you have in Japan now.
Let's let Vaush answer that question.
So the difference is, first of all, it actually isn't the same problem. Japan doesn't have much in the way of immigration. We actually have an above replacement birth rate in America, factoring immigration in terms of just how many workers we have.
Well, then we have a below replacement rate.
So we have, which means we're not suffering from a population crisis in the same way Japan is. Japan, because they don't really allow for immigration in the same way that we do, not only has below replacement birth rates, they have total below replacement population. They're dipping. So their problem is definitely a lot worse. However, obviously, we want to avoid population dips. Ideally, every country would level out at essentially replacement rate. There's always going to be fluctuations, of course.
The thing we're below,
highly
right?
Variable. But I think that the goal eventually would be to get the world on board with that. There's still countries that have a lot of room to grow, like India, for example, is going to keep ballooning for a while. Africa, the continent of Africa is going to massively increase in population. I mean, it's so big. Europe is so small, and Africa and Asia are so big. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of freaking out at that. But that's what the continents are sized as. You can look at it from space. That's how big they are. There's a lot of land. So the goal then, I mean, there's going to be a lot of fluctuation as we reach that point. I think that our main goal should be trying to find a point where we taper off at a healthy level, and we can use immigration to supplement any below replacement birth rate problems to a point where we don't have a crisis of population. Ideally, every country, or I guess every region of the world, because there's always going to be some degree of immigration, would be able to level its population and just stay strong. And I think that would probably lead to the best economic outcome for all humans.
My question was how you would solve the birth rate problem. You said by bringing in immigrants, that's going to solve the birth rate problem?
What?
That's what your argument was that our population levels can still be maintained due to immigration. So the birth rate problems essentially, how would you solve the birth rate problem for the third time?
At the moment, that does literally do that. Because the issue, of course, is the population. When your population declines, or when you have very uneven population distribution in terms of age, that's when the real problems show up. But for now, immigration does a pretty good job of supplementing that, which is why Japan is collapsing and we aren't. Japan's GDP has been stagnant for 35 years. Ours has just been exploding. So clearly the economic problem, the worker problem, that's not it, right? But eventually, Mexico and America both are going to level out. And at that point, immigration will no longer be a reliable solution. Immigration from where, Right. Maybe we can pull people from elsewhere, but what about them? They don't want to, we don't want to drive them.
So how are you going to solve the birth rate problem for the third time?
Andrew, he did answer your question.
He actually, at the end of his answer, actually recognized he didn't. So he said, what are you going to do when all of these countries have below replacement and you can't rely on immigration? He actually worked himself to that, which is great. So now maybe we could get to the how we're going to solve the birth rate crisis thing.
Are you okay with me giving you a really, really long answer?
Of course, Vaush. Why would I expect anything different? Nice, concise answers would allow me to respond. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm glad we understand the point. It's really complicated. So,
Of course.
the big yes. The big problem ultimately is that a lot of people don't want to have kids because they don't feel comfortable raising them. People biologically want to have kids, like literally, like we're talking about a base instinct here. So how do we cultivate that? How do we make that happen? A lot of people feel hopeless. A lot of people feel very economically insecure. There's a big difference between rural economic insecurity and urban rural insecurity as well. Cities have much lower birth rates on average, in large part because like city houses are so small, and if you run out of money even a little bit, you get like kicked out of your place. And if you have kids, it's like, oh my God. But in a rural area, maybe the issues are more like broader economic destitution for the region, but maybe you have like a house that's been in your family for generations, so it might be more easy to raise kids. I think that fixing housing policy and economic inequality would help a bit. I think that addressing climate change would make people feel more hopeful. People tend to produce way more kids after when they feel hopeful towards the future. We see this all over the world. It's constant, after a big civil war ends, when there's peacetime, like that's how it is. I think that there's lots of civic policy that we could encourage. I think that banning abortion would artificially inflate birth rates, but it wouldn't make society better. First of all, I think that women, and in fact, men with wombs as well, have a right to have an abortion if they want to. I don't believe that a fetus has ethical personhood, and neither did the founding fathers. But and neither does the Bible, for that matter, considering the quickening liquid, the bitter water that it gives you the recipe for. But leaving that aside, I think we want people to want to have kids, right? Like the best world is the one in which a chick gets pregnant and she's like, "What? Abortion? No. I mean, I know I could, but I want to raise kids, I think that's nice." So we have to make people happy, productive, vibrant. We have to make our cities safe for children, which they are not currently, because a bunch of people live in suburbs where you can't walk anywhere. And also people live in like urban jungles where it's like cars everywhere and it's dangerous and stuff. There's just so much stuff that we can do, Anyway, I know that's long, but like we're talking about a really, really broad problem.
Okay, so I've been writing this down as you've gone. You said we should address global warming. And that's it. You actually didn't give any other solution. You said that city homes are cramped.
That's true. I didn't say.
Can you give me some actual fucking solutions here or not?
I
don't get it. Can you give me some real solutions, or are we just going to do the endless? I literally took notes live. Give me a solution, Vaush. Anything will work. Any fucking solution other than address global warming, unless you think that'll solve the birth rate crisis.
Do you think? Is this like a medical thing, like a deafness issue? Like I don't know how to respond to this debate tactic. This is very powerful. I can repeat all that word for word. I'll repeat it.
I just wanted a single solution.
He did give at least one more in the beginning.
Just a few, people should want to have kids, and people will want to have kids. People do want to have kids for the most part. Not all humans, but most of them. It's a biological.
They're just not having them.
Yes, like for example, there are lots of things people want to do that they don't necessarily do based on a variety of conditions.
Yeah, but they want to do that, Vaush.
Yeah,
they want to have kids.
Yes,
and your policy of what is going to help them do that?
So, do you not think we biologically want to have kids?
No, I think we do. I'm asking you a specific question.
I think one of the policies that Vaush mentioned was daycare for the kids, right? I heard you say that. Is that
correct? Okay. I can just list them. Like I was trying.
You're going to give daycare for kids.
So obviously subsidizing childcare, making it that it doesn't cost $20,000 to give birth to a hospital, like whatever insane number it is in the average American hospital these days. Making our cities more kid-friendly, as in not dirty, disgusting urban jungles where if you step 1 foot in the wrong direction, you get obliterated by a car going 50 miles per hour in a Strode. We need to level out the housing crisis. That means more variety and mixed zoning in cities, because it is tough to raise a family in a city, because being able to afford a place large enough for like 3 kids in a city, holy shit, I hope you're rich. Like there needs to be more upzoning so that it's possible for more people to live there without the prices going crazy. There's a lot of housing policy stuff there that could work to that effect. More parks, more neighborhood friendly stuff. Seattle's pretty good about this, but not all American cities are. Like a lot could be done in that direction. The climate change thing is real. I think that would help. Giving people more time away from work would help. a UBI or some kind of basic economic provision so people don't feel like they're one day away from losing everything, like constantly working paycheck to paycheck, something that gives them the comfort to spread their wings and fly and maybe have a couple of kids, stuff like that, you know? Also, high school and college, like I think it would probably be good if there was a bit more of a gap between these two things. Most jobs that people work do not need immediate like college work, and we treat colleges like high school too, but I think that it's kind of fucked because like there's a weird misdistribution of people's like attention and time and energy there. Maybe education, like higher education, isn't something everyone wants, but it seems like people make a mistake sometimes when they go to high school and then just go right into a job. I think leaving some gap time there and maybe making colleges more accessible to older people. Like if you're 26 and you've already had 2 kids and you want to go to college, I don't know, it's complicated. Okay, so was that at least 2 policies?
No.
The thing is that you gave kind of some descriptors of problems, but not policy fixes. So let me give you an example of this. You seem to want to throw money at this situation. I can agree with you on that, at least. You seem to want to throw a lot of money at it. However, other nations have thrown money at this problem and given mass incentives for people to have children, and they still fucking aren't having them, Vaush. They still aren't having them. Do you understand? Like, so you say we need to subsidize daycare. Okay, nations have subsidized daycare. You say we need to mothers have maternity leave. Okay, we have nations that have maternity leave. They're still far under replacement rates, and the trend's not backing up. Can you explain to me how it is, after all of your prattle, after all of this money is thrown into this problem by even these nations who it seems you're modeling after, they still have a below replacement rate? Now you say this is a stopgap that reduces it slower. Great. But how are we going to reverse the trend? What's the policy Vaush is going to do, or even the collection of policies Vaush is going to do to help reverse this trend that you say have now acknowledged needs to be reversed?
So I just Googled effect of maternity leave on birth rate from the European Union Center of California. The effect of paternity leave on fertility rates. A segment from which says, maternity leave tends to reduce or even reverse the rate of decline in fertility rates. See figures 2 to 5 in the appendix. I looked at another article, The Effect of Leave Policies on Increasing Fertility, a systemic review. I haven't even scrolled down yet. Maybe when I scroll down, I'll find a total defeater for my argument, in which case I'd still argue that fertility and maternity leave are still like good for people, like because it makes them happy, but you know, whatever. Hold on. We classify the 23 studies in terms of the type identified, revealing that all the negative or null studies identify the current child effect, all the positive studies identify the future child or total effect. Since the future child and total effects are more important for promoting aggregate fertility, our findings show that leave, paternal and maternal, does in fact increase fertility when benefit increases are generous.
Okay.
I'm also going to give a 5-minute warning. Go ahead.
And is that saying that it is reversing the trend or just slowing it down? What I'm asking you for is how we reverse this trend.
Maternity leaves tend to reduce or even reverse the rate.
Then give me the examples of which nations have a reversal going on in their fertility rates. I would love to see them.
What contrary data do you have to what I've provided thus far?
I don't need. Listen, I just asked you a specific question. Can you show me any nation who has reversed their birth rate crisis via economic policy, or can't you?
Yeah, sure. So on page 4, fertility rates in the European Union, in the appendix right here, we see a list of countries in the European Union which have their fertility rates charted year by year. And we
Which
can
ones?
See all of them. Every country in the EU.
So they're not trending downward.
And they're all reversing. Do you see how much you've moved the goalpost? You're like,
I've moved the goalpost. I've asked you the question 50 times.
Does this even have an effect? And it's like, yeah, here's studies saying it has an effect. And then it's like, oh, show me the effects. Oh, here's the effect. Okay, has it fixed every single one of them?
You're so mad,
every
dude. Calm
EU
down,
country
Vaush.
has the same policies when it comes to maternity and paternity leave.
I've asked you this 50 times, that even if it slows it down, what's your policy for reversing this issue? You have not given me any still. And the data you pull up, all the data shows is at most it helps mitigate it. It's crazy.
Whoa, wait, hold on. Wait,
Andrew, to be fair, Vaush, several policies that he recommends. You disagree with those policies.
Wait, really quickly. You realize
he has given you some policies.
He literally just said, like, oh, maternity leave only stops the decline in birth rate? You mean they were in free fall and passing that policy stops it?
I said this earlier. If you go, you can even go back in the video and see it yourself.
You can read all of it if you want.
Send it over. I'm very familiar with how birth rates work globally. So just so you know, I said this earlier.
I'm sorry.
Even if throwing money at it can slightly slow the problem, can you show me the trend of the problem being reversed?
It's literally said stop or even reverse. You can read it.
Yeah, okay, but so then all you have to do is show me the country where it's reversing, and then I'll agree with you.
Sure, So in the thing that I just linked you, we see over time the birth rates in Nordic and Eastern European countries. That's what I'm looking at right
Which
here.
one? Which one's reversed?
They use the acronyms. Hold on. There are 14 countries listed here. So let me see. That's Lithuania. That's Hungary. That's Sweden. That's what you can open it up. Okay, go do that. It's page 9 out of 27 on the eucenter.scripscollege.edu. Now, you might notice that the lines were going down a lot, but then at a point they stabilized and even started to climb upward. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, but that actually doesn't mean anything. These can be
Baizan,
anomalies.
Arpino, and Delclos in 2016 paper found that a reduction in paternal working hours is linked to a, quote, sharp increase in fertility rates. This is because much of the additional time off is used to care for children. Sullivan et al. In a 2014 paper compared the amount of time fathers spent with their children in 2 regions of Europe. They found that Nordic countries, where fathers value gender equality to a higher degree than those in Eastern Europe, spend more time with children. In figure 6, I compare the fertility rates of these regions.
Just give me a nation.
I observed that prior. Well, hold on. I'll just read the entire thing if you're insistent on not reading it. I observed that prior to the 1990s, all European Union countries had fertility rates above the, quote, very low level. Some countries' rates were even above replacement levels. After 1990,
it's 1.53 for the EU right now. 1.53.
Both the Eastern European countries and the Nordic states experienced a decline in fertility rates. The Nordic countries were able to maintain or even increase their fertility rates, partly because of their egalitarian attitudes and paternity leave policies, which were implemented in between 1991 and 1998. Cecilia and Verlu 2012, quote, Why Swedish Men, study 2014, Finland, study 2013. In recent years, fertility rates have begun to converge.
How long are you going to let this go on for, Alex? Are you just going to let it read indefinitely to filibuster the entire day?
Andrew, he is answering your question. He linked the article.
This is fucking ridiculous.
This is
If true, he should be able to show me where this fucking trend is reversed anywhere. It's not reversed.
Andrew.
It's not reversed in any of these nations. You're a liar.
You got to mute him, Alex. You got to mute him. It's the only way.
Okay, stop. Andrew, he did answer your question. He said Scandinavian countries. Right?
They're not reversed in the Scandinavian countries, is my point.
Got to mute him.
None of them are reversed. He's lying.
The problem is that Andrew has literally nothing to offer, and he keeps asking me, like, how would you solve? How would you? And now I'm literally reading out the exact.
According to the article, it does sound like there was some reversal, unless I.
Then all he has to do is give me the nation where I can look at the reversal in these birth rates.
Reading it.
Just name one. Just name one, bro. Name a single one. Name one.
Name one country for the sake.
Yes, please.
Okay, the Nordic countries. So, like Sweden.
Sweden's birth rate, you think, is on the upward swing? Then
let me Google Sweden birth rate.
Wait. I thought you just said that you knew. This was your evidence, and you don't know.
Right now, it's in the article that I just linked to you. It's literally
it's on the downward trend since 2020.
I think
since 2020. I wonder if anything happened in 2020 that might be affecting the overall birth rate.
Yeah, but it was on the downward trend even before that.
Well, interestingly, it seems like these articles have found extremely effective positive correlations between fertility rates and these maternal and maternal policies.
Yeah, except all the countries that you named, their fertility rates below replacement and still dropping.
Except,
Wait, to be fair, I think what Vaush was saying is that this specific policy caused a positive increase in birth rate. He's not saying the country itself is on an upward swing, because there could be a multitude of other
then that defies the purpose of the question, which is
no, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
So again, like the problem is, and I think this is again tantamount to the fact that not only does Andrew not care about Christianity, he doesn't actually care about birth rates either. He asked the very specific question, what policies to increase it? So I find studies that say these policies increased it and sometimes even reversed it.
Yeah,
and
but I already...
And he's like,
listen,
well, that doesn't actually
First of all, all you do is railroad the debate. But I've already explained this to you multiple times. No, you wait. I just let you drone on for an hour reading your stupid ass study.
You don't.
Again,
you understand
can you point to the nation where the birth rates are going up due to the policies that you are proposing? Is it actually reversing the trend or is it not? So if you say to me, Andrew, this is a mitigation, I've already said you can mitigate policies with finance. However, it doesn't seem like any of these policies move it back to the upward trend.
Alex, really quickly, I'm going to appeal to the moderator here.
Of course you are.
Was the question not, are we not discussing policies that improve birth rate? Was that not something we were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, and was the question not asked? Okay, so after we find that policies improve birth rate...
Is it possible that I'm allowed to speak for more than 3 seconds?
Andrew... Like, see, man, hysterical, this guy.
Wait, hang on. Oh, don't make it worse, Vaush.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that just slipped out. I apologize. That wasn't civil of me. So at first it was which policies help, but now it's which policy single-handedly reverses it. And now it's, okay, this policy was found to have reversed.
You're just letting the dork lie. He's lying through his teeth.
But the reverse did not continue indefinitely. The problem is...
How long is this guy going to filibuster the debate?
He literally, he's hysterical.
Look, he's filibustering the entirety of the debate, and he's trying to reframe desperately, and you're allowing him to do it. Alex, don't allow him to do it. Again,
I'm going to mute you. I will make sure you get equal time to refute this, Andrew. I promise you, you will not be cut off. You can ask all the follow-up questions.
I just want to talk. I'm
trying my best to be fair. So, okay, Vaush.
He's just prattling, bro.
I don't. Okay, well, let him prattle for like 30 seconds. Humor me.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you, Alex, if I may.
Okay,
so the problem we're at right now is that it literally progressed from which policies help to, okay, so this policy is proven to help. Does it fix the problem forever and eternally? And then there's literally studies saying, actually reverse the trend, but now he's pretending that's not happening either. We're 2 hours and 22 minutes into this. I might as well be talking to a rock. He doesn't care about Christianity or birth rates. I think what he cares about is attention, honestly. It's very funny.
Okay, well, let's not get to the personal insults.
So what I'm saying is, I have to wrap it up now. I'm at the point now where I'm reading a study that says the things, and then he's like, well, what does it say this? Like, I can't. This is a level of willful, like, reality.
This is just called what I call cope. You're just coping, bro.
Okay,
you never actually demonstrated your position even once.
See, you're still doing it.
Can you hang in for 10 more minutes?
Yeah, well, to clear out at the half hour, sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I think this is what we should do. So I don't remember exactly how Vaush phrased it in the beginning, so I'm going to plead ignorance on that. It does seem like Vaush is saying, hey, here are the things that help the problem, but they don't fix the problem, right? And so I don't even know if you guys are disagreeing on much, but I'll give you guys like the last 2-3 minutes to just go at it. I won't even talk.
Wait. So I'm not allowed to speak at all.
Quit being
I get shut down the entirety of the debate. One more time, let me respond to some of this nonsense.
Okay, go ahead. Respond, Andrew.
So, first of all, I told Vaush earlier, I'm not looking for policies which act as a mitigation, but as a reversal. And do you have specific policies which act as a reversal? He does not. I stated to Vaush multiple times in the very beginning of this debate, he claimed this wasn't even an issue. This isn't even a problem. There's nothing to even worry about. And suddenly he's desperately Googling for a study which he just reads. He doesn't understand what the study's even saying. He just claims, hey, there's some mitigation effects on the birth rate. However, the downward trends are in all of the nations he cited. When I actually got this literal fucking moron to cite an actual nation on the downward trend, and he knows it. He pulled up the graph for himself. Complete and utter bullshit out of Vaush's mouth. Vaush, do you specifically have any collection of policies which is going to help within your communist util model in actually reversing this trend of the declining birth rate, which you have now described as being a problem or not?
Help in reducing the lowering.
No, that's not what I said.
What?
Repeat back what I said.
Dude,
repeat back what was said.
Do you have dementia?
Repeat
you just said.
Hang on. We're on limited time.
No, I was responding and then he interrupted me.
No. Let's answer Andrew's question. It was a fair question.
Yeah. So he asked, do I know of any policies that would help in reducing the trend? So no one policy can single-handedly fix any giant fucking
I asked if he had one that
geopolitical problem. He literally said help and fix it because when he's not pretending to be this stupid and disingenuous, he understands.
Literally said reverse.
He can't help himself.
What's the word reverse mean?
I linked an article.
What does the word reverse mean?
Andrew, let's let him answer.
He doesn't understand because he's still strawmanning the argument and you're letting him. What does the word reverse mean?
Hang on. He understands what the word reverse means. Let's let him try to answer the question. If he doesn't do a good job answering the question, I promise you, I will personally press him and get him to answer the question. So the question from Andrew is, are there any policies that reverse the problem?
So that specific article we just looked at said some countries, like Norway, saw a reversal of the trend because of the causative impact of the parental leave. Now, obviously, when we're talking about how to fix a global problem, one single policy is not like, this is like arguing like you're fighting a war and it's like, can you show me the one single gun that will defeat the enemy? Like, it's nonsensical. No. However, this
Norway,
seems,
which
this
is on
seems
the
to be,
downward
whoa,
trend.
Andrew, calm down.
Norway's on the downward trend too.
This seems to be
Just
to be
all
pretty
lies.
effective. So if you Google like maternal leave effect on fertility rates, from what I say, just literally scrolling through, there are dozens of articles. It seems like a really clear-cut answer. Of course, no one thing can fix everything. You have to try multiple things, and oftentimes these programs end up getting defunded too. For example, a whole bunch of the like paternity leave and like subsidy programs and a bunch of like healthcare stuff in like the UK and Sweden and other countries has been defunded from right-wing governments. So even if there is a short-term benefit, it kind of gets cut out in the long term by the fact that there are people like Andrew who will gut those policies. I think that if you care about preserving birth rates and making things better, like it's literally like you Google the study, this improves the thing. So like, yeah, you know, pretty simple policy. I don't know why Andrew wants to keep mothers away from their children, but you know,
what's the most interesting here is that this country that is cited, Norway, is on the decline in its birth rates. There is no reversal. He's lying to you again. What he's trying to do is he's trying to say that there are some policies which can mitigate the decline, which was already conceded to 15 times. He has not given us even a collection. And I said this word, the word collection of policies even, which would actually have a reversal effect, because all he can come up with is materialists throw fucking money at it. But every place that we've thrown money at it, there is no fucking reversal. They're still on the downward trend. The data shows this overwhelmingly. What he's doing is a red herring, typical red herring, and he filibustered for like 5 minutes to read this and still never actually showed us a reversal. Look at Norway's stats for yourself. They're on the downward trend. Are they not, Vaush?
Huh?
Is Norway's birth rates not on the downward trend? The example you just used.
The study said that it was improved because of the policy.
And their birth rates?
Wait, can I actually answer this question?
It's unbelievable.
So you do realize policies can be defunded and other things can change, right? Like this is again like saying like, oh man, dude, my health really improved when I took those antibiotics, but now my health has gone down and it's been like a month. What's happened? And it's like, whoa, you only took antibiotics twice and you haven't taken them at all for the past
has the policy been removed?
So, well, in a lot of cases, it has been defunded.
Well, in Norway.
Over that.
Has it in Norway?
I don't know about Norway specifically.
Well, then why would you use this as an example for your example, stupid?
Because you don't seem to understand. I know you don't actually
make up arguments.
I know you don't actually. Wait, hang on, stop. Vaush,
well, wait, can I get a closer?
Of course, you guys will both get closing statements. Vaush, I totally understand the closer. What?
Was that not his closer?
No, Vaush, I totally understand the point you're trying to make, but he did ask you a direct question about whether currently Norway's
and by the way, paternity leave is still fully funded in Norway. Just so letting you know.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm happy to answer your question. The problem here, and he's aware of this, which is why he sounds like a giggling psychopath whenever he makes the bad points, is that you can never look at the effects of policy by looking at a policy that was passed in 1990 and then going, oh, well, 30 years later, things are down again. What you try to do is check to see if there's an effect that can be correlated, or better even yet, like demonstrated to be causatively associated with the policy in particular. For example, imagine if you were to take a look at like, hey, does Biden's child tax credits lower child poverty? If you go back to the COVID pandemic, right, or the COVID crisis, and you ask, hey, did this policy lower child poverty? The answer is yes, it cut it in half. But now that's not in effect, and other things have happened. So it's like, oh, well, what happened? I thought it fixed child poverty. In reality, the standards that Andrew is setting for analyzing policy would not work and don't apply anywhere, which is why
these are all fair points, but I still think you should answer his initial question.
He doesn't do that.
What is the?
He doesn't know
question?
how.
The
You don't even know what the fucking question is. You're so stupid, dude.
What is the question?
I'm trying to help
You don't
you,
even
man.
know the question. You're answering a question. You don't even know what it is.
The question is, currently, is Norway's birth rate going down? Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I think technically it's actually risen in the past couple of years. The last data point was from 2023, where they had birth rates per 1,000 people.
Is it on a downward trend or not, Vaush?
Trend based on what?
Based on the fact that it keeps going down as part of a trend.
Well, over the past 5 years, it's actually gone up. Curious.
But the trend shows it going down. And what did the Norway analysts show?
The trend of the past 5 years is that it's going up.
Well, let's take a look and even see if this trend is true.
Alex, this is literally never going to end. I brought up an article that proves
every
point I had.
No, it doesn't prove anything.
It's 2.5 hours.
You just read about. You just read it.
He doesn't care about kids. He doesn't care about God.
Stop. We do have to get into closing statements. We're 2 hours and a half in. You, Andrew, said you want to keep it to no more than 2 hours. Vaush, you said you want to wrap up at 2 hours and a half mark. So both of you guys want to wrap up. I promise you can make all the points you want in your closing statements. I have to go. It's 2.5 hours in. I thought it'd be 2. Oh shit. Do you have a minute or two to make a closing statement?
Quick though.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Literally, like, you can Google policies to help fertility rates. Oh, bammo, there's solutions. All of Andrew, the reason why he does like the psychotic laugh and the reason he's chain smoked like 20 cigs throughout the entirety of this conversation is because his only actual like prescription is that he's a fascist, and that's it. He doesn't give a shit about anything. He doesn't care about God. He's not an orthodox. He has no real beliefs. Like most fascists, he believes that the world is anti-empiricist, that everyone else is just as slimy as he is. In reality, it's just him, and he's alone. He has severe interpersonal problems with others. He clearly can't get along with me, and I'm a very easy guy to like. Like, I don't know what to do when you pull up a book that says this policy works, and he's like, well. So, like, I think that if there's any resounding point to be made from him, it's immense personal unlikability. And for me, it's a set of sensible policies that you can adopt if you care about producing more children.
Okay. Thank you, Vaush.
That's my rational argument.
You want to really quickly plug your channel before you go?
I'm also Vaush.
All right, cool. I appreciate you coming on. I thought this was a really good discussion.
And I have my closer now.
Yeah, of course.
I understand that Vaush may not stick around for it, but as of 2022, there were a total of 51,480 newborns in Norway. That might sound like a lot, but it actually marks a drastic drop in the fertility rate within the country, and it's on the downward trend. This is according to Norway's own stats, as much as the Gish Gallop goes. But let's go back into this. Vaush was blown out on ethics. He had no argument there. All criticisms directed at me were equally directed at him. He said that I'm not an Orthodox Christian. He has nothing to back that up whatsoever. It's just some declarative statement that he makes up. He's called me a fascist, but when we were trying to go through that, he ran from it as fast as he possibly could, tried to filibuster the time as much as he could. He also, at the start of this, remember, said the birth rate itself is no problem. It's no issue. It's not even anything you got to worry about. By the end of the debate, he's scrambling desperately because his logic led him to notate this one key point. If the immigrant countries also have a below average birth rate, this is Vaush's words, you're not going to be able to migrate them anymore. We have a big problem. He said that himself. So finally, we get to the concession. This is an issue. When I ask him, what is your solution to this? Which I would have been happy to give mine. Instead, he says something mild like, we'll throw some fucking money at it. And hopefully, even though that does a small mitigation of the problem, but does not reverse the trend, we will continue on this evermore, throwing materialism at this, even though it has done absolutely nothing in any of these Western nations to reverse the trend whatsoever. In fact, I would also say Vaush is literally one of the most bad faith opponents I've ever debated with. But I'm actually fine with that. I don't really care that much because his arguments weren't very good. So ultimately, all he had was you're mean and a fascist and hard to get along with. I've gotten along with Vaush fine for a year. He's been on the Crucible multiple times. Never had a bad engagement with him behind the scenes. Total fabrication and bullshit there as well. Not a single problem with the guy behind the scenes. He says I have issues with interpersonal relationships, yet he's come on my show multiple times without any of these interpersonal relationships. What this is just typical over-talkifying, right? The mod allowed way too much of that. That's his show. I can't say anything about that, but my arguments were far better, and he never did make an actual demonstration for why I was wrong about any singular point that I made. And with that, I'll close. And I appreciate very much even the time of Vaush, who's more than welcome to come back on the Crucible and do debates in the future. I take none of this personally and never have with any of the interlocutors that I've engaged with.
Cool. Yeah, I know, Vaush, you got to go. Andrew, do you mind staying on for another 20 minutes?
Of course.
All right, cool. Yeah, Vaush, appreciate you. I thought this was a really, really interesting debate, and I personally enjoyed watching it. I had to step in way more than I usually do. Andrew, you've seen me moderate many times. I never, ever step in this much, but I thought it was appropriate. Hopefully, you guys both thought I did a fair job. I was trying to be as fair as possible.
Alex, you were a dream, and I appreciated your moderation very much. Andrew, I hope you find God.
I hope you do too.
Have a good one.
And Jenny Craig.
Chad, I didn't get that joke. What was the joke?
Yeah, don't worry about it, Vaush. No biggie.
All right. Jesus Christ. That was a juicy one. That was probably the most, as a moderator, I've ever had to step in during a debate. But I feel like if I didn't do that, it would have just become pure circular insanity. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Chad, you can let me know. I tried my best to do a fair job. Make sure things kept moving.
Well, the problem is you're not used to complete bad faith interlocutors. So people who will literally do everything they can to run out the clock because they have no argument. That's actually tough to do, and there's nothing you can do except step in and stop it. But then the other person
I did press him on a lot of questions, Andrew.
Right, but anytime I would make what's called reasonable interruption, meaning this guy's talked for like 50 seconds, right? So in order to prevent a gish gallop, you actually have to cut in so you can address a single point at a time. But you've never had a moderated debate like that. I'm not upset with you. You know what I mean? Just from my perspective looking in.
Yeah, but the problem is then when you interrupt, then he responds to it just becomes this.
And but there's what's called reasonable interruption, but it's something I can discuss with you at a later date. It's not a big deal.
All right, for sure. So let's read the super chats. I actually had 2 points I wanted to bring up with you, Andrew. But let's read these super chats. If high birth rates equal happiness, why did Orthodox Christian Romania rise up to execute Kashaft, a forced births, for 20 years?
Why did rise up to if high birth rates equal happiness? So the question isn't whether or not high birth rates equal happiness, but it starts off with the assumption that we got to have at least human beings to quantify their happiness. You have to start there. You have to at least have humans to quantify the happiness. You don't have a choice. You know what I mean? That has to be done. So okay. We have to start with at least having some kind of replacement rate, or we have nothing. So start there.
Would you support Christian nationalism if the Ortho Church condemned it?
I would always follow what church doctrine was. Inside of Orthodoxy, though, that's not always clear. And there's specific reasons why that's true. In the case of Christian nationalism, it depends on how it would be defined, which would depend on which specific ethnic version of Orthodoxy would condemn or not condemn it. However, I think the way that I define Christian nationalism, nobody would have any problem with.
Okay, cool. So I wrote down two things I actually want to ask you. So you said the world population is going downhill, but that is actually not true. There will be decline in most Western countries, but the world population will continue growing every year. And I can show a source for that if you don't believe me.
Show it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so you can kind of see it just goes up and up every year.
The global population. And what's the source here?
I think this is based on world populations prospects or something like that.
Now pull up the United Nations projections for population next.
Yeah, sure. It's good. I've looked into this pretty thoroughly, but yeah, I'll look it up.
Yeah, look into it thoroughly more.
United Nations World Population
Projections.
Projections. Okay. Where would you like me to go?
Doesn't matter. Click whatever you want. And by the way, this is me being the most charitable to the data.
Yeah, no, on this one, I am extremely confident you're wrong.
Okay.
Let me try to find something from the UN. Let's try to go to graphs.
How about I just link it to you?
Yeah, sure. If you want to do
Would
that,
that be better for you?
This is not related. Yeah, you can link it in backstage.
Mm-hmm. I'll just.
But every single. Okay, there we go. Here's UN.org.
Mm-hmm.
World population projected to reach 9.8 billion, 11.2 billion by 2100. So yeah, this is.
And then what? And then what?
It calculates up to 2100, but it seems to be going up and up and up because of all the people that people in India and Africa are having.
Okay, so now I'll send you a link. You can move on to the next super chat, and I'll pull up this data, and we can go back and forth on it here in just a second.
There's literally not a single data source that I've ever seen that says the world population. Now, you're right. In Western countries, it is declining. In America, in Europe, in countries like that, even in certain Latin American countries. But when you look at it from a worldwide perspective, it's going up and up and up. Okay.
Go ahead. You can move on to your next super chat. Like I said, I'll get you the data here.
Okay. This is more of like a point rather than a question, but you made a point that we need more people to do the work, but I feel like that completely ignores automation and technological improvements. Every decade, work becomes more and more automated. So why do we need more people to do the work when in reality there's less and less jobs because of automation?
Well, can automation get salt out of the mines? The thing is that automation only goes so far, is what I'm saying. And the kind of projection,
it gets better and better every year. So,
but no, it doesn't. So the thing is that the projection has been for many years that the human element would be taken out of most jobs by the year 2000, and then by the year 2020, and now we're in the year 2030, and we're actually facing a labor shortage inside of the United States. Automation does not save you. It does not save you. Okay, somebody still needs to drive the tractor, fix the machines, and do all of these things. Automation can really help with us producing products, and we can produce more products than we've ever produced before, but you still need the human element. And until we get to the point where you don't, which is not going to be anytime soon, you better be very cautious about trying to eliminate too much of the human element.
Yeah, I do think that we will always need some element of the human of humans. However, a lot of jobs are going to get, I feel like this is just fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, they're talking about how truckers are going to be pretty soon out of business because they're going to have automated driving trucks, right? So those people, millions of people, are not going to have a job anymore, right? So there's a whole bunch of jobs that are being outsourced. I mean, really, this is right now the reason that the people in California, the writers, are striking because they want the studios to sign a contract that they can't replace the writers and the people who do the tech stuff with CGI, right? That's literally what they want them to do because they feel like if the studios start doing that, then they will be out of a job. So this is like, yeah, I mean, sure, you might be right that we've been way too cavalier in our estimates of how much jobs are going to be outsourced. And you might also be right that it's not going to happen as fast as people want you to think, but it is definitely happening.
Okay, here's your link, bro. And this is one of like many that I can send you, which will give you much better up-to-date estimates. But notice that this trend is global, just so you know. This is a global trend. It's not just a Western trend. The idea that it's a Western trend is way behind the times.
This is not a UN article. This is some website I've never heard of before.
It has links to the data, man.
We know rapid growth. The studies followed by the Club of Rose. The new result diverges from the other recent efforts of the 29th said the world published by 9 September suggested other more forecast published growth based on fact of the Okay, so this actually says it diverges from the UN estimates.
The UN estimates have also been adjusting themselves, and just since 2023, their estimates have been wildly off. And they don't know why the birth rate continues to decline globally from earlier estimates, especially in the 70s and 80s, where we would have these massive peaks. We've not seen these massive peaks. So every projection I've ever seen, even from the UN, shows a peak, leading to a peak, and then a massive decline and a drop, which makes sense because we still have multiple generations. And that's why we're going to see this kind of peak happen before a massive decline. The birth rate hasn't caught up with us yet, but it will.
Yeah, I don't see any actual studies. I just see articles
that cite studies by specific people.
Here, let me share my screen, and you can like kind of walk me through this.
Mm-hmm. Here's another one. This one, and I'll give you another study.
Wait, let's just do one at a time. So show me like where are the studies.
Well, they should be linked at the bottom. But if they're not linked at the bottom, I'll give you a direct article which does have a direct study.
Okay, yeah. There's nothing at the bottom.
That make you feel better?
Yeah, sure. All right. So let me then take a look at. Did you just post it already?
Yeah, I just did right now.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Erroneous population link Springer.com. Okay, world population was 6.9 according to this number is almost 47 billion more than -2. Blah blah. We're much closer to current estimate. Forecast accuracy. World population is 6.9 billion. This number on this. It was difficult to predict by so in the 80s. So far, it's mostly talking about the past. At first sight, the relative. It's the world's birth rate fell from 30 years to the next drop fertility by 1 point.
By the way, Pew Research, which I'll link, also uses UN data, just so you know. And I can give you those forecasts as well. This is on the demographic shifts. But yes, every analysis I've ever seen shows a peak followed by a rapid decline. I think the last UN estimate that I saw was the decline would go down to 6 billion and stabilize. Even in your own worldview or Vaush's worldview, this would make sense because they say that as family planning and people become more educated, they have less children, so the population will become more stable on planet Earth. That's what they're talking about.
Well, right, but in Western countries, sure, but in countries like
this is global. 6 billion globally. Global.
In this article, I don't really see, they're just talking shit about the UN. I don't really actually see, there's a lot here. So to be fair, I may have not gone through that, but I don't really see their estimates of what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, what are you asking me for?
like a study.
Do you want Pew Research? There's Pew Research. Like what else do you want, man?
Yeah.
How much more can I give you? The global estimates, even from the UN, was that there was a peak followed by a decline.
No, the UN is saying that it's going to keep going up and up and up.
Okay. Oh, man. Here, let me give you UN data right here. One second. Man. I'm telling you, man, this is almost unbearable. But I'll try.
What's unbearable about being asked a direct question to provide a source? Like, this is pretty reasonable what I'm asking.
Right. Here's another source for you.
Okay.
Look at look at it yourself.
Wikipedia. Okay. Let's take a look.
Oh, I'm sorry. I linked you the wrong article. Hang on. That was my fault, I think. I might have linked you the wrong one. I had a bunch of shit there.
It's all good.
Yeah. Anyway, you can continue with the super chats. I'll still pull up the data so we don't have dead air.
Okay. That's actually all the super chats I have. I do have a few people backstage. First for the call-in part, so I'll just bring them on real quick. Okay. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, there's more for you, by the way.
Okay. I would just
That's
like
the
to
correct
thank,
link.
I would just like to thank Vaush for mentioning Lithuania on the internet. We get really excited over that.
Lithuanian's bad.
No. Anyways, I've seen these policies being implemented in real time as I work with systems, and I had to adjust the systems to accommodate the workers working less due to these policies. And yeah, it's true that we have a lot of quality of life, of paternal leave, that kind of stuff. Over the past 3 years in my workplace, which we have a lot of workers, and like 60 of them are young people, we had like 4 to 5 children being born in at least where I work. So it's not really, well, while it helps, it's not really, reversing the trend. And even culturally, when I speak to my friends, for example, wanting to have at least 5 kids, they look at me like I'm an insane person. So it's more cultural than economical, I would argue. That's what I would ask Posh, or Vaush, not Posh, to give a solution on how we would change it.
He doesn't have solutions.
Right.
They don't have, listen, none of these people have solutions when you ask them, right? And rather than deferring, so he had to admit right away in the debate, for instance, that if I said that I want to outlaw abortion, that would definitely help in the solution of increasing the birth rate, right? But we couldn't even move past that into even better solutions than that, because he wanted to prattle on kind of tangential points, which made no sense. It's fine. I mean, you can prattle, but you still have to address my points. So,
yeah.
And I don't feel like any of my points ever got addressed.
Yeah, well, that's all I had. Thank you for the debate. It was really good.
Welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming on. All right, let's bring on the next person. Peacecraft.
Alex, I just want to say you were lied to, and I really got to make this point, and I really want you to pull up the dishonesty. Vaush is still live. Vaush is still talking about the debate. Vaush has been talking about it and coping about it for the last 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All to all of his audience, right? This was while I understand that you're new to moderation in the political space, this was one of the worst bad faith examples that I have seen in forever. I literally I took notes throughout the entire debate. I have notes of every positive claim that the debaters made. Vaush's claim that he got to talk less, untrue. He had over 67% of the speaking time in this debate. Vaush was bad faith and dishonest from literally 20 minutes to an hour and 57 minutes. It was fucking ridiculous. You, as a moderator, ought have stopped him more. He did not make a single positive claim until an hour and 47 minutes into the debate. He contradicted himself within his own logical framework no less than 4 times in 8 minutes between hour and 6 and hour and 29, or hour fucking 17. It was fucking stupid all the way through, right?
I mean, I tried to do the best job I could moderating. I feel like I did a pretty good job.
I am slightly blaming you. I'm saying that cocksucking autistic is uniquely slippery. He's uniquely slippery, and he's uniquely bad at it. And when it comes to moderation, if he ever comes to your platform again, you've got to stick him. Here are the questions that I would have asked him.
Well, I think. Hang on. I think I'll just keep doing whatever the fuck I want. But sure. I do appreciate your criticism. But
I didn't.
Did you call in just to like?
No, I called in to hammer him. I called in to hammer him real fucking hard. Here. But I'll ask the questions that I would ask him and see how you two respond. Is that fair?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
The guy who had to leave, who's still alive?
Yeah, that guy. How can Vaush, Alex, how do you think Vaush can hold the position that he doesn't want a growing birth rate when the social systems that he advocates for, such as SS, Medicare, Medicaid, or even a UBI, would require a growing population to sustain these items. In the current year, we have problems maintaining these systems due to their pyramid-like structure. It would seems by necessity we would at a minimum have to have a growing population of whatever replacement rate is, plus 0.1 for us to have these systems.
Yeah, that seems like a fair point. I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said. I think for those things, they do require the replacement population to be healthy. I think the point that Vaush was trying to make is that you could subsidize that with immigrants, but
unless their population rate is below threshold as well.
Right, but okay.
And that's the problem.
Well, don't
no. At least for the next 30 years, the population is going to grow. And I actually looked into it, 2050 to 2100, it's only going to drop by like 1%. So it's going to be
listen, they're being revised, and I sent you revisions. This is disputed data. Now, you might say that I don't care if it's disputed.
I'm going off what you sent me.
Yeah, but even what I sent you a dispute to this data. The birth rates are rapidly declining, and the projections could easily be wrong. But even if it was only 100 years, that's a blink in the eye. Now, from a materialist standpoint or a Coomer standpoint, maybe you don't care, but I care.
But you're disagreeing. Wait, are you saying you're disagreeing with the data that you sent me as proof of your argument?
No, I sent you data, the UN data, first to give you the most charitable view possible, and I also sent you some of the revised data that disputes that. But either one of those data points you look at show the downward trend globally, like it or not.
Well, so the wiki article you sent me shows that it's going to be going up until 2050, and around between 2050 and 2100, it's going to go down by like 1 or 2%. Like that's really what it shows.
It's going to be on a continuous decline, is what it shows.
Well, that's not what it shows. It shows that it's going to.
Alex, it has to be on a continuous decline because we're under the threshold for replacement.
Okay, so it says it's going to peak at 2086 at 10.4 billion, and then slow decline to about 10.3 billion.
Yeah, these are the most charitable estimates. Again, most charitable estimates.
You're sending me. I'm just going on.
What about the revisions that I sent you that show that even though these are the most charitable estimates, they're still highly conflicted?
Okay,
even if it wasn't true for the global population, which it is, right? It is definitely true of the Western population, which we live in.
All right,
I've agreed with that from the start.
So my last statement / question, and to chat asking why my name is Horsecock Fan number 2, that's because Horsecock Fan number 1 left back to his own stream. That's why my name is Horsecock Fan number 2. All right. Now, Alex, you said that you were learning about these political debates. And the problem with Vaush's fascist claims is that, yes, fascism is a uniquely post-leftist ideology. And in appealing to Umberto Eco, even Umberto Eco himself said he should not be used as a reference to identify people as fascist. He disavowed his own 14 points of fascism. But what is a cult of tradition? If Vaush is continually appealing to a political system 80 years old or longer, I'd say that appealing to socialism or communism is a cult of tradition. If it's a rejection... Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if you watched the debate I did with Vaush initially, but that was one of the things that I brought up. I said that I don't think you should call everyone and anyone fascist, and that's one of the things I debated with him. So I do agree. I don't think it's good to label and characterize people as fascists with minimal evidence as a way to disprove their points. So yeah, this is not something I've ever argued against.
Sure. What I would say, though, is in the future, with somebody of Vaush's political ideology makes references to fascism, unfortunately, they have to own the opinion that they are more in line with fascism than Andrew. Now, I don't agree with Andrew on everything, but
he may disagree with that perspective. Like
they could disagree, but they would ultimately be wrong. The amount of state and corporate intervention and state-owned type items that Vaush has advocated for are directly in line with fascist economics.
Yeah, when I'm moderating a stream, my job is not to convince someone they're more fascist than Andrew. Like you're going way outside of like what I'm supposed to do as a moderator.
Sure. No, well, not. I don't believe so. Right, and I don't believe
Well, no,
so
like
for this whole.
I did force Vaush to answer that question. What makes Andrew a fascist? I think I brought it up multiple times, so I don't know what else I could do.
Sure, I'm not holding you to task too greatly, but in the future, right? Like, if Vaush is going to repeatedly ad hom members of your panels that you have on guests, the ad homs should at least fucking be appropriate. Like, I can say that Andrew has greasy hair and smokes like a fucking chimney, right? But I can't call him a fascist. What Vaush is doing in those moments is not only poisoning your viewers, but he's just base signaling to his own audience as well, right? So all I would ask is just humble request in the future, when you see these bad logic trains going down, and when you see these ad hom trains going down, when you see this attempt at a bad gish gallop, just throw the moderator flag and go, back it up or shut the fuck up. That's all I'd say. And thank you for having me on your show.
Okay. You're welcome. Have a good one, man.
Have a good one.
All right. Let's bring on one last person. Will.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, first of all, Alex, I think you did fine. Like, yeah,
Thank
Vaush
you.
definitely likes to ramble, but like, you just gotta say, hey, get to the point. Like, when he's actually like read off like the literal quotes from like Umberto Eco's entire thesis, like you gotta say, hey, get to the point, right? Like, nobody is served by him reading something we can like all read by ourselves. Just something like that. And also, to Peacecraft's point, if Vaush says Andrew's a fascist, it's up to Andrew to defend himself, not for you to say it. Like, you should allow like Andrew to like defend himself, but like it's not on you to like tell Vaush, hey, back it up.
Yeah, I know all that.
Yeah, it's just like let people make their points and just make sure that like, I guess people are saying things clearly and like the audience is entertained.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Will, did you have any questions or?
Yeah, so my question, like, it's a short one to Andrew. So do you kind of agree that, like, Vaush's policy proposal increasing, like, parental leave can lead to some increases in birth rates, correct?
It can lead to some of the mitigations in the decreases, but it doesn't ever seem like it swings it back the other direction.
Yes, I understand that. But do you think that similar economic populist policies can increase that, like mitigation, so that eventually, like given like good policy, like and good policy like tweaking, can eventually lead it to back up to replacement?
I don't actually think that they can.
Why? Do you think that the
reason that I don't think that they can is due to the fact that the policy prescriptions seem to rally around this kind of leftist prescription of having children later, which is a huge problem in this model. So we don't want women to have children later. We want them to have them earlier because you're going to have more of them, and that's when they're the most fertile. So the problem is you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to tell women that they should go out and be as educated as possible, have a career, then settle down in their 30s in order to start having children, that's actually probably a pretty bad model for fertility.
Yeah, but does that bear out in the data? Does Vaush's study?
It does bear out.
No, I'm saying, does Vaush's study have such a small increase that you don't think any amount of economic?
Yeah, it had a negligible increase. That's correct. And it wasn't even an increase. It was actually just a negligible result against the decline. He said some of these seem like they reverse some portions of the problem, but they don't actually reverse the problem.
Can you cite like a specific number?
Of what?
Of the study. Like how much does it actually mitigate it by?
Which policy?
Yeah, the parental leave, like the specific Norway study.
Yeah, so in the Norway condition, they were talking about literal fractions of percentiles.
Yeah, that's usually enough. Because
to
like
what?
percentile, yeah, because birth rate is like
no fractions. Fractions. So if you look at the birth rate and it's 1.64, and this helps with like 1.66, right? This is not, even if you were to stabilize it at that would not be useful to us.
Yeah, but like still, you still do agree that like it's progress, correct? and that like this is still promising.
Yeah. So
avenue of approach.
again, even if that's true, which was my point to Vaush, even if it is helpful in mitigating the decline problem
No, I'm
is
saying
still
this
there.
is this not progress? Like this is.
I'm not
better
sure
than
that
nothing.
I'm not sure that it's progress. Mitigating the decline is not helping reverse the trend, which is what I'm after.
Then I think you're
All right,
asking too much, like from just a single study.
Well, maybe
right.
you are thinking that I'm asking for too much, but this
Yeah.
was my point.
I don't want to get into like a quasi debate. Andrew did answer the question. I do want to wrap up, but thank you,
Okay.
Will. Appreciate you coming on.
All right, thank you.
Take care, buddy.